Chapter 495. Chu Luiyue smiled lightly. The Jiang family is an aristocratic family, and fourth Missy Jiang has a distinguished status. I'm sure you know the principle of first come, first served. You shouldn't be able to snatch other people's things, right? This smiley sentence made Jiang Yuji choke. You. This girl is so sharp-tongued. Just as she was about to go up and teach the other party a lesson, Xiahou Tingan gently said, Yuji, this Missy is right. Jiang Yuji looked at him angrily. Are you going to speak up for her too? Don't tell me I've taken a fancy to this girl's looks? Xiahou Tingan saw her expression and knew that she misunderstood. He smiled and patted her hand. What are you thinking about? As the Jiang family's fourth Missy, you really shouldn't do this. If not, the Grand Tutor will scold you again when he finds out. Hearing him mention her father, Jiang Yuji then restrained herself. As the Grand Tutor, Jiang Lizhua had strict requirements for himself and the Jiang family, so Jiang Yuji was very afraid of him. But I just want that piece of Jizo coral. Jiang Yuji stomped her feet indignantly. Don't worry. I'll find everything you want for you. Xiahou Ting comforted her for a while before stepping forward with a generous smile on his face. We don't want to snatch things that others like. However, it's rare for Yuji to meet something she likes. So, I'll pay twice the price to buy this thing. The highest bidder wins. Is there a problem? As he spoke, the servant behind him went forward again and took out another 10 white crystals. The page boy looked at Chu Luiyue hesitantly. This Missy you see? Chu Luiyue raised her brows. It's true that money makes the world go round. The other party is paying twice the price, so it's not wrong. If I use the same excuse from before, I'll be at a disadvantage. Just as she was hesitating, Duan Ziyu suddenly said, Mississippi Master said that he'll try his best to satisfy all your requests during this period. If you really want this piece of Xidagarba coral, just let me know. Chu Luiyue looked at him in surprise. He really said that? Duan Ziyu nodded. The day before, when Master returned, he specifically instructed this subordinate about this matter. Of course, that was not what Mu Qinghe had said. What he said was that since Chu Luiyue was brought here by him, everything he did in West Hill was related to his reputation. He asked Duan Ziyu to take good care of him. If they lost because of 10 white crystals and this matter spread out in the future, those who did not know would think that Mu clan was poor and stingy. Chu Luiyue could probably guess what Mu Qinghe meant. Although he didn't care much about extravagance as the deputy general of the Black Cavalry of the Tianling dynasty, he would never back down when he needed to be strong. Chu Luiyue's lips slowly curved up. This feeling doesn't seem bad? Thank you, Lieutenant Duan. Duan Ziyu said respectfully. Miss Chu, you're welcome. After saying that, he walked forward and threw out a money bag. There are 40 white crystals in here. We want this item. Everyone was dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? Using 40 white crystals to buy a piece of Xidagarba coral? Even if it's of better quality, it might not be worth this price. Is this person crazy? Duan Ziyu looked at the page boy. The highest bidder gets it, right? The page boy hurriedly said. I'll help you now. Jiang Yuji anxiously pulled Xiahou Tingan's sleeves. Xiahou Tingan nodded at her and raised his voice. I'll pay 50 white crystals. No matter what, I'm the second young master of the Xiahou family. When have I ever lost because of money? Especially since Jiang Yuji is here, I can't let others step on me. Duan Ziyu didn't even turn his head. 100 white crystals. He actually doubled it. The entire exhibition hall was silent for a moment, and everyone looked over. In the entire exhibition hall on the first floor, there isn't anything worth more than 100 white crystals. Someone actually paid 100 white crystals for a piece of Xidagarba coral. There's nothing wrong with his brain, he's just rich. Mu Qinghe is really rich. Chu Luiyue touched his chin. Most people thought that Mu Qinghe was just a general who started from scratch and relied on his own capabilities to become a new noble in Xiling. Even though his status was high, his family's wealth couldn't be compared to the aristocratic families in Xiling City. But in actual fact, the best way to earn money was through war. Dahuang Swamp had been rebellious for decades, and Mu Qinghe led his troops to suppress them with his iron fist. His wealth was simply uncountable. Jiang Yuji and Xiahou Tingan were of noble birth, but their families were huge. In terms of money, they weren't as free as Mu Qinghe. As expected, Xiahou Tingan's expression changed. It wasn't that he couldn't take out 100 white crystals. But to him, this wasn't a small sum. If his family knew that he used so much money to buy a piece of Xidagarba coral, he would definitely be harshly reprimanded. His throat was dry as he looked at Jiang Yuji awkwardly. Yuji, even though this item is good, it's not worth so much money. Why don't we look at something else? I'll buy it for you. How about that? Jiang Yuji's face immediately pulled long. Tingan, are you unwilling to spend money for me? If you're not willing, I'll buy it myself. As she spoke, she acted like she was going to fork out money. Seeing that she was angry, Xiahou Tingan immediately tried to curry favor with her. I was just joking with you. Why did you take it seriously? Of course I'll buy it for you if you like it. Jiang Yuji was doubtful. Really? Xiahou Tingan could only nod. Of course. He looked at the page boy and clenched his teeth. I'll add another 5 white crystals. Someone suddenly laughed out loud. Even though this voice disappeared very quickly, everyone could hear the mockery in it. Compared to Duan Ziyu's generosity when he said that he would double the price, these 5 white crystals were really stingy. Xiahou Tingan's face instantly flushed red. He also felt embarrassed. But this was really my limit. Duan Ziyu's expression didn't change. 150. Xiahou Tingan's face turned pale again. Countless gazes landed on him, and he felt as if there was a dagger on his back. He turned around and glanced at Jiang Yuji, but he saw her expectant expression as she anxiously said, Tingan, quickly increase the price. This item is going to be snatched away by them. Easy for you to say. Anger surged up in Xiahou Tingan's heart. How can I not know what Jiang Yuji is thinking? She has always been arrogant and never wants to lose, but she's worried that the Grand Tutor will reprimand her for spending money recklessly. That's why she's rushing me to pay the bill. I've been thinking of ways to curry favor with her in the past year, and the two families are already discussing the marriage agreement. If I make her unhappy at this time, won't all my hard work in the past year go to waste? He opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Duan Ziyu said, no matter how much second young Master Xiahou offers, we'll add another 50 white crystals. We must have this Xidagarba coral. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 496. The crowd sucked in a cold breath. Just how much confidence did he have the guts to say such words? Is it worth it for a piece of Xidagarba coral? The answer is definitely yes. This is because the two parties aren't just fighting for a piece of Xidagarba coral. It's more about their face. Things have already gotten out of hand. Whoever backs off now will be admitting defeat, right? Jiang Yuji and Xiahou Tingan represent their respective family clans. No matter if it's the Jiang family or the Xiahou family, they are all top families with high statuses. If they lose to this unknown person at 100 Herbs Building today, won't it be too embarrassing? Xiahou Tingan finally couldn't maintain his expression as he coldly said to Duan Ziyu, are you purposely going against the Xiahou family? Chu Luiwa chuckled and said, Second young Master Xiahou, second young Master Xiahou. Second young Master Xiahou, where did this come from? Previously I saw this Xidagarba coral first and you guys increased the price. Why is it that we're purposely going against you now that we're increasing the price? Xiahou Tingan couldn't rebut and was embarrassed. Even if I can continue to increase the price, I'll definitely be held responsible later. Besides, the other party clearly wants to fight to the end. If I let this continue, it will only get worse. Tingan, why aren't you saying anything? Jiang Yuji knitted her exquisite brows. You have to buy it for me. Are you going to watch me get bullied by them? Xiahou Tingan became increasingly frustrated. Who's the one being bullied now? I just stood at the side and casually said a few words. I don't have to do anything, but I'm the one who's embarrassing myself. Even if I really buy it, I'll be called willful at most when I go back. What about me? I'm not the only young master in the Xiahou family. Someone might use this incident to make an issue out of it. Tingan, Tingan? Jiang Yuji called out impatiently. Xiahou Tingan took a deep breath in and suppressed the anger in his heart. He tidied his clothes, coughed, and looked at Duan Ziyu. You're from the Black Cavalry? It seems like you're a lieutenant? From what I know, the salary of a Black Cavalry lieutenant isn't high enough for you to spend money like this, right? Could it be that your money came from an improper source? There were dirty people everywhere, and the Black Cavalry was no exception. This lieutenant was so arrogant, and his tone was even more arrogant than him, a proper young master of an aristocratic family. It would be strange if there wasn't a ghost. Duan Ziyu's back and shoulders were straight as a javelin. I am the captain of the 3rd Black Cavalry Corps, Duan Ziyu. I have been in the army for 11 years and have killed 1,589 enemies. I can guarantee with my life that I have never done anything against my conscience, nor have I taken any money against my conscience. His voice was cold and hard, and every word was like a clap of thunder crashing onto the ground. What second young master Xiahou said earlier is not only an insult to me, but it's also an insult to the thousands of black cavalry soldiers who protect dynasty. Please take back those words. Everyone trembled, and then they were filled with deep veneration. With such a military record, it was more than enough for him to be promoted by one rank. The generals and soldiers who guarded the territory of the Tianling dynasty had sacrificed their lives and fought on the battlefield without any regard for their lives. In the end, they were humiliated by a playboy. How despicable. Xiahou Tingan was also shocked by Duan Ziyu's aura. After all, he was pampered and raised in Xiling City, so he naturally wasn't on the same level as Duan Ziyu, who was constantly on the brink of death. Now that Duan Ziyu spoke harshly, he instantly felt guilty. Even though the surrounding people didn't say anything, their gazes were filled with reproach. I was just casually asking. If your money came from a legitimate source, why wouldn't you dare to say it? Xiahou Tingan braced himself and retorted. Duan Ziyu sneered. Second young master Xiahou, do I have to report to you how the Mu residence's money came about? Mu residence? Which Mu residence? Xiahou Tingan was dazed for a moment before he recovered his senses. There's only one Mu residence in Xiling City. Black Cavalry Lieutenant General Mu Qinghe's official residence. Why you're Mu Qing, Vice Admiral Mu's man? Xiahou Tingan's voice trembled. The exhibition hall became exceptionally quiet. Duan Ziyu said word by word. If second young master Xiahou doesn't believe me, you can follow me there. Xiahou Tingan immediately said. There's no need. Mu Qinghe's residence is indeed filled with the Black Cavalry. I was just wondering why this face looked so familiar. Mu Qinghe did bring him to show his face previously. But Duan Ziyu was just a subordinate after all, so Xiahou Tingan didn't notice him at all. That's why I didn't recognize him after so long. He looked at Chu Liwei and Chang Wanzhou at the side and asked uneasily, Miss Mu Qinghe? Then you, Miss Chu is the Mu residence's VIP. Duan Ziyu spoke first. Xiahou Tingan choked and couldn't say anything for a long time. I offended Mu Qinghe. Jiang Yuji was also shocked when she heard about the Mu residence and felt anxious. Mu Qinghe isn't someone to be trifled with. This girl is actually related to Mu Qinghe? If I knew, I wouldn't have snatched her from them. Second young master Xiahou, may I know if you still want to continue increasing the price? Asked Duan Ziyu. Xiahou Tingan felt suffocated. Not to mention that I don't have any money now. Even if I did, I can't go against Mu Qinghe. Isn't this finding trouble for no reason? And no need. Since Miss Chu is the Mu residence's VIP, we'll let you have this Xidigarba coral as a token of appreciation for Vice Admiral Mu. Second young master Xiahou, you don't have to be so polite. Chu Liwei suddenly spoke and smiled at Xiahou Tingan and Jiang Yuji. Since you want it, we'll compete fairly. I'm just a girl from an ordinary background. Vice Admiral Mu is so generous, but I don't deserve it. I'm already very embarrassed that I've troubled Vice Admiral Mu with food, clothing, and transportation, and it's even more inappropriate for me to use his power to intimidate you and ask the two of you to let me have it. So, you really don't have to let me have it? Her words made Xiahou Tingan so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. I'm just finding a way out for myself, but why is this girl clinging onto it and not letting go? He kept quiet for a while before clenching his teeth. No need. At the end of the day, this Xidigarba coral is just a small toy. If Miss Chu wants it, feel free to take it. How can we snatch what you love? Jiang Yuji hurriedly said, Tingan, we still have something on, so we'll leave first. Xiahou Tingan spoke very quickly and turned around to leave after he finished speaking. Jiang Yuji was filled with anger as she watched Xiahou Tingan leave quickly. Never mind that he didn't buy anything for me, but he actually left me behind. She turned around and glanced at Chu Liwei. It's all your fault. Chu Liwei wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled and said sincerely, 4th Mississippi, 4th young Mistress Jiang, you should thank me. Jiang Yuji was dazed. Thank you for what? Chu Liwei clicked his tongue and said regretfully, even though my background isn't as good as the two of you, I know one thing. A man who isn't willing to spend money on a woman is unreliable. Second young master Xiahou's family background is top-notch, so why isn't he willing to spend such a small amount of money on you? Originally, I even said that if he raised the price again, I'd go along with the flow and let you have the item. What a pity. Jiang Yuji was embarrassed and furious. Her expression changed and she hurriedly turned around to leave. Chu Liwei retracted his gaze and lightly knocked on the crystal cabinet. This cabinet, that cabinet, and the one by the wall. I want everything inside. There was dead silence in the exhibition hall. Chang Wanzhou couldn't help but ask. Didn't you say that you don't deserve that person's money? Chu Liwei chuckled and patted his chest. Anyway, I'm already filled with guilt. Let this guilt come more fiercely. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Web. Chapter 497. The corner of Duan Ziyu's mouth twitched. For some reason he felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Sure enough, Chu Liwei then looked at the servant. By the way, is there a total of 3 floors in your exhibition hall? The servant hurriedly said with great respect. Yes. The herbs on the 2nd floor are more expensive. The 3rd floor is for VIPs. If you want to go up and take a look, we will immediately send someone to introduce them to you. Chu Liwei wanted expensive herbs. There's no need to find someone else. You can accompany me up. The servant was surprised and delighted. One must know that in 100 Herbs building, there were people on every floor who specially served. Without permission, the servants on the lower floor could not casually enter the upper floor. Looking at Chu Liue's attitude, it was clear that she wanted to buy a lot. Just the ones she had just ordered were already more than what he usually sold in a month. If he served Chu Liue to her satisfaction, he would be promoted in a matter of minutes. Miss Chu, different floors have separate packaging and checkouts. The servant quickly took out a card and handed it over with both hands. You have spent 1,000 white crystal coins just now. We will give you the 100 Herbs Building's gold card for free. At the same time, you can enjoy a 10% discount. Chu Liue took the card. Her eyes lit up for a moment, but then she looked at Duan Ziyu with some hesitation. Commandant Duan, is it okay for me to do this? Even if Duan Ziyu really felt that it was inappropriate for her to do this, he would not say so. He coughed and said, Don't worry, Miss Chu. Mu Clan can still afford this money. The items on the 2nd floor were more expensive, but it should be fine for Chu Liue to casually choose a few items. Chu Liue was relieved and smiled. That's good. When I go back, I will personally thank Vice Admiral Mu. After saying that, she let the servant lead her to the 2nd floor. There were clearly fewer people on the 2nd floor compared to the 1st floor. Chu Liue roughly scanned the area and realized that there were only 3 customers, including herself, who were actually looking at the items here. She even recognized one of them. It was the pavilion master of Chongshu Pavilion, Yuchi Song. He was also a celestial physician and had given her a lot of pointers. He could be considered half a teacher to her. He didn't expect to bump into her here. However, compared to before, Yuchi Song's hair was a lot whiter, and he looked like he had aged a few years. Miss Chu, this way please. The manservant walking in front stepped aside and welcomed Chu Liue inside. Chu Liue quickly withdrew his gaze and followed the servant forward. This place also used crystal cabinets for display, but each of the crystal cabinets was stacked with a corresponding defensive profound formation. Just these specifications alone were much more expensive than the ones below. Chu Liue looked at the medicinal herbs placed inside. They were indeed rare and precious items. However, unlike the 1st floor, the labels here only had the names of the medicinal herbs, but not their uses and prices. This was obviously for those knowledgeable and rich people. Chu Liue walked a few steps and pointed at a green fruit the size of a fist. Take this out for me to see. Duan Ziyu glanced at it from the side. Green spiritual snake fruit. It didn't look like anything special. However, the manservant's expression changed. He looked like he was shocked but also like he was happy and excited. He hurriedly put on gloves and took it out carefully. Although he said he took it out, there was actually a layer of crystal barrier around the green spiritual snake fruit. The protection was very tight. Chu Liue looked at it carefully. This should be 500 years old? You have a good eye. This green spiritual snake fruit was found on a 1,000-year-old green spiritual snake tree in our 100 Herbs building. There were only 3 fruits on the tree. Therefore it is very precious. The manservant's impression of Chu Liue changed greatly. This Miss Chu could actually recognize the age of this green spiritual snake fruit. She didn't seem to be from an ordinary family. Ordinary people didn't have such eyesight. Chu Liue nodded with satisfaction. Then this is it. The manservant suppressed the ecstasy in his heart and said, This green spiritual snake fruit costs 5,000 white crystal coins. Are you sure you want it? Duan Ziyu suddenly raised his head. Such a green fruit actually costs 5,000 white crystal coins. Chu Liue seemed to have noticed his abnormality. She looked back and asked with concern. Colonel Duan, what's wrong? Duan Ziyu forced a smile. No, nothing. Chu Liue seemed to have suddenly understood something and asked in a low voice. Is it because I picked something too expensive? Duan Ziyu, was there a need to ask such an obvious question? Although Master said to take good care of Miss Chu, but according to this, Master would definitely bleed a lot. But how could he go back on his words? Duan Ziyu forced a smile. No, don't think too much. It's just that I'm a rough person and didn't recognize these medicinal herbs. I didn't expect them to be so expensive and was a little surprised. Chu Liwei breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. I was still worried that I had done something wrong. Duan Ziyu was at a loss for words. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was already thinking of all kinds of reasons to tell Master about this matter. Chu Liwei continued to walk forward. This exhibition hall was very big and there were many medicinal herbs. Chu Liwei also took a fancy to many things. She walked all the way and only walked a third of the way, but she had already picked a few items. The manservant followed behind and secretly thought that this person really had good eyesight. She actually picked the most expensive ones here. Miss Chu, according to the items you chose just now, it has already exceeded 10,000 white crystal coins. Your gold card has automatically been upgraded to platinum card. Except for those on the third floor, you can enjoy a 15% discount on the other items in 100 Herbs building. Chu Liwei listened and suddenly stood in front of an 8-colored ice crystal. Add this too. The manservant had gradually gotten used to Chu Liue's generosity and directly said with a smile. This 8-colored ice crystal is taken from the deep sea and contains the power of extreme cold. The price is 7,000 white crystal coins. Duan Ziyu's footsteps were a little shaky. Chang Wanzhou stood beside Chu Liwei, frowned slightly and asked in a low voice. The cold evil qi in my body. I don't think I need this thing, right? Who said it's for you? Chu Liwei glanced at him. I just thought it looked good and bought it to look at it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 498. Since Mu Qinghe had already spoken, she naturally couldn't let him down. She had helped Mu Qinghe so much in her previous life, so it was only right for her to repay him a little in this life. After hearing this, Chang Wanzhou nodded in understanding. He didn't have much concept of money and he rarely dealt with others. What Duan Ziyu said just now should mean that Chu Liwei could buy as much as she wanted. Then there was no problem for her to buy these. Oh, by the way, go over there and take a look. If there's anything you like, just buy it. Chu Liwei said to Chang Wanzhou with a smile. Chang Wanzhou wasn't interested in these things, but since he was already Chu Liue's follower, he naturally had to listen to her orders. He responded and swept his gaze across the crystal cabinet. However, he still didn't move more than 3 steps away from Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei raised her chin. You can also go over there and take a look yourself. Chang Wanzhou shook his head. Chu Liwei thought to herself that this child was really stubborn, but the corners of her mouth curled up. Then I'll help you pick it. Chang Wanzhou nodded silently again. When he was obedient like this, he always seemed especially soft and obedient. Chu Liwei resisted the urge to rub his hair and continued walking forward. Duan Ziyu dragged his stiff body and followed behind. You really can't give me more? This is the best quality scarlet flame heart jade. Back then, this old man spent a lot of effort to dig it out. Yuchi Song's voice suddenly rang out. Chu Liwei looked up and saw Yuchi Song talking to a servant. He was holding a small black jade box in his hand, and his expression was somewhat urgent and embarrassed. It turned out that he wasn't here to buy medicinal herbs but to sell them. The servant looked troubled. Pavilion Master Yuchi, I'm really sorry, but this is the highest price we can offer. A hint of disappointment flashed across Yuchi Song's face. He hesitated for a moment before he finally let out a long sigh and pushed the jade box forward. Forget it, let's leave it at that. The lid of the jade box was open, and Chu Liwei happened to see what was inside. It was an extremely exquisite jade seal that gradually turned from transparent to red from the outside to the inside. The outside was clear and moist, while the center was warm and dense, without a trace of impurities. Chu Liwei widened his eyes slightly. That seal was Yuchi Song's favorite in the past. In the past, if she wanted to play with it, she would have to persuade him in every possible way. It was clear how much he treasured this seal. But now, he actually wanted to sell the seal? The servant carefully closed the jade box. Yuchi Song's eyes were full of reluctance. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. The servant handed over a card. Here are 10,000 white crystal coins. Please keep them well. Yuchi Song took the card and unconsciously rubbed it a few times. Finally, he ruthlessly withdrew his gaze and turned to leave. Chu Liwei saw clearly that his face was full of loneliness. When Yuchi Song brushed past her, Chu Liwei could even feel the deep loneliness on his body. She was just about to speak when she remembered her identity and swallowed the words in her throat. After Yuchi Song left, she asked in a seemingly unintentional manner, So 100 Herbs Building also accepts medicinal herbs? The servant next to her smiled and said, of course. And the price is the most fair in West Hill. That seal carved from scarlet heart jade could be sold for 10,000 white crystal coins. There was indeed nothing to say. But what Chu Luiyue was curious about was why Yuchi Song did this. Looking at his appearance, it was obvious that he was extremely reluctant. Chongshu Pavilion's status in West Hill was not low. Yuchi Song, as the pavilion master and a celestial physician, had never been short of money. How could he have fallen to such a state? She smiled, revealing a hint of curiosity. That old man just now, to be able to take out such a valuable thing, his identity should not be ordinary, right? The servant did not suspect her and only thought that Chu Luiyue asked casually. He whispered, that is Pavilion Master Wei Qi of Chongshu Pavilion. Chu Luiyue blinked. Since he is the pavilion master, why would he come in person? She did not finish her sentence, but the meaning was obvious. The servant sighed. Sigh, you don't know. Chongshu Pavilion used to be a top sect in West Hill City, but now. He shook his head with a look of pity. Chu Luiyue asked, what's wrong now? The servant looked at her and lowered his voice. We've all heard about Chongshu Pavilion, but we don't know much. We only know that Chongshu Pavilion was robbed a year ago, and there were heavy casualties. Even Pavilion Lord Wei Qi had been injured and still hadn't recovered from his injuries. In addition, Pavilion Master Wei Qi's only son died in an accident half a year ago, which was an even greater blow to Pavilion Master Wei Qi, so. Chu Luiyue's heart trembled. What kind of person could have dealt such a blow to Chongshu Pavilion? Moreover, brother Yuchi Lang was also dead? No wonder Yuchi Song looked so haggard. As of today, Chongsu Cabinet has already become a second-rate clan. Pavilion Master Wei Qi is struggling to hold on, and it's actually not easy. Chongshu Pavilion had always had a good reputation in West Hill. Most of its disciples were celestial physician, and they had always had a good relationship with 100 Herbs Building. Seeing them wither to this extent, the people of 100 Herbs Building were also filled with emotions. Chu Luiyue's brows furrowed slightly. Chongshu Pavilion had a strong foundation. Even if it suffered such a disaster, it was unlikely that its status would fall so quickly in just a year. There must be another reason. It was very likely that someone was deliberately suppressing it. After all, she and Yuchi Song were very close back then. It was not impossible that Jiang Yuqing and Shangguan Wan were deliberately taking revenge. If it was really because of her that the Chongshu Pavilion was implicated, Chu Luiyue's mood was complicated, and she did not speak for a while. Miss Chu, are you all right? Seeing this, the servant called out to her twice. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses. Her expression had already returned to normal and she smiled slightly. Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking that the seal looked good. The corner of Duan Ziyu's eyes twitched violently. Sure enough, Chu Luiyue then walked towards the servant who had just received the seal and stood in front of the crystal cabinet. She did not have time to put away the black jade box. Chu Luiyue said, "Let me see this thing." The two servants were overjoyed. They hurriedly presented it to him respectfully. Chu Luiyue looked at it for a while. "I want this. Since Miss Chu is so straightforward, then I'll sell this treasure to you at the original price." Those who could be servants here were all shrewd people. This Miss Chu was an important guest of the Mu clan, and she was generous. It was better to rope her in than anything else. Everyone knew that the Mu clan was full of men. Now that a woman suddenly appeared, and a beautiful young woman at that, perhaps the ruthless Vice Admiral Mu had some thoughts. Based on this trend, she might even become the mistress of the Mu clan. Chu Luiyue naturally did not know what these people were thinking. It was naturally good to be able to buy it at the original price. She picked up the seal and rubbed it for a moment. Something seemed to be surging in her heart. Did the pavilion master sell anything here before? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 499. Duan Ziyu finally couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Miss Chu, don't tell me you're planning to buy all of Pavilion Master Yuchi's things?" Duan Ziyu's words reminded Chu Luiyue. She suddenly came back to her senses and smiled in surprise. "How could it be? I just thought that since he has such an identity he must have a lot of treasures. I want to see them. But it seems that it's getting late. I'll come back another day." Duan Ziyu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If she continued to buy, he really didn't know how to explain it to his master. The two servants were slightly disappointed, but her spending today was already very high, and they were already satisfied. Moreover, she was backed by Mu clan and had a lot of money. How could she not come back in the future? "Yes. Miss Chu will immediately pack up the things you liked." Do you want us to send someone to carry them for you, or do you want to pack them up and send them to Mu Clan together? It was too high profile to take so many things back from 100 Herbs building at once. It was clearly looking for trouble for her. Chu Luiyue waved her hand. You can send them to Mu Clan later. Yes. You spent 103,000 white crystal coins on the second floor, plus the 4,800 white crystal coins on the first floor before. It's a total of 107,800 white crystal coins. After a 15% discount, it'll be 91,600. At the same time, your platinum card will be upgraded to a black gold card. You see, the servant said and looked at Duan Ziyu. It was obvious that he wanted to pay. Although it wasn't his money, Duan Ziyu's heart still ached fiercely. 90,000 white crystal coins. Even for the master, this was not a small amount. Since it's upgraded to a black gold card, are there any other benefits? Duan Ziyu asked, unwilling to give up. The servant's face was full of earnest and sincere smiles. Although the discount of the black gold card and the platinum card are the same, in fact, they are very different. The distinguished guests with the black gold card are qualified to go up to the third floor. If your spending reaches 1 million, a special box will be prepared for you on the third floor for your use alone. 100,000 white crystal coins could only get a chance to go up to the third floor, and 1 million white crystal coins could only win a box. Wasn't this threshold too high? Duan Ziyu took a deep breath and took out a universe ring. There are 10,000 white crystal coins in here. Take it as a deposit. As for the rest, once you send the items to Mu Clan, we'll settle the rest separately. The manservant respectfully received it with both hands, and the smile on his face became even more enthusiastic. He was not worried that Mu Clan would go back on their word. Even after working in the 100 Herbs building for so many years, the total performance was not as good as today's. With this stroke he would be completely rich. Miss Chu, if you need anything in the future, 100 Herbs building will do our best to help you. Chu Luiyue glanced at Duan Ziyu and smiled. I still have something to do today, so I'll take my leave first. When he left, all the servants on the first and second floor obviously knew that Chu Luiyue had become their distinguished guest. They all bowed to him. The manservant accompanied them all the way and respectfully sent them off. Only when the three figures completely disappeared did he return with a face full of smiles. After ruthlessly ripping off Mu Qinghe, Chu Luiyue's mood became much better. Just as he returned to Mu Clan's entrance with Chang Wanzhou, he saw Mu Qinghe not far away walking toward him. It was already evening and the sky had just turned dark. But relatively speaking, this was the first time Mu Qinghe came back so early in the past few days. After not seeing her for a while, Mu Qinghe became thinner again, and her complexion did not look too good. But Chu Luiyue did not show any change in expression. He still smiled and bowed to her. Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu. Mu Qinghe stared at Chu Luiyue. I heard that you defeated a beginner 5th stage martial artist in today's qualifier? Chu Luiyue was not surprised that he knew about this. He nodded with a smile. Yes, it was just luck. Luck can come once but not twice, Mu Qinghe said calmly. It seemed that he had already heard about the battle with Wu Zhao in Pingliang Square. Chu Luiyue thought that this person looked busy, but he did not miss out on anything that he should know. Looks like you have improved a lot during this time. Chu Luiyue's eyes curved. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu, for the praise. Luiyue is ashamed to accept it. Duan Ziyu suddenly shuddered. Now, whenever he heard Chu Luiyue say the words, ashamed to accept it, he felt a headache coming on. Mu Qinghe looked at him and snorted. That proud and satisfied expression clearly showed that he felt that it was natural for him to win. Where did he look ashamed at all? The Wanzheng competition will officially begin tomorrow. You just have to prepare yourself. With that, Mu Qinghe turned to leave. Vice Admiral Mu, wait. Chu Luiyue hurriedly stopped him. I have a friend who is also participating in this Wanzheng competition, but he doesn't have a place to stay. I wonder if you can let him stay in the residence for a while? Mu Qinghe had noticed Chang Wanzhou behind her just now, but she did not expect Chu Luiyue to make such a request. He scrutinized Chang Wanzhou for a while. Since he is participating in the Wanzheng competition, there must be someone to guide him. How can he not have a place to stay? Chu Luiyue quickly and briefly explained the situation to him, but she made some changes to it. For example, the person Chang Wanzhou was looking for claimed to be you. Chu Luiyue naturally could not tell Mu Qinghe this. She only said that Chang Wanzhou came to Xiling alone to look for his family. Because he was alone and had no one to rely on, she pitied him and took the initiative to help. Mu Qinghe directly rejected her. Other than the Black Cavalry, The Mu residence does not allow anyone to enter, let alone stay. Chu Liwei clasped her hands together. Vice Admiral Mu, you just need to tidy up a room in my courtyard for him. I guarantee that he will not cause any trouble. When the Wanzheng competition is over, I will naturally send him away. Of course she would not be staying here by then. Mu Qinghe looked at her pair of thirsty and cunning eyes and changed the topic. If anything happens, you will be fully responsible. This meant that she agreed. Chu Liwei immediately smiled until her eyes curved. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Mu Qinghe glanced at Chang Wanzhou again and walked into the residence first. That young man seemed to be quite talented. Chu Liwei then brought Chang Wanzhou to her courtyard. Duan Ziyu quickly excused himself. Needless to say, he must have gone to find Mu Qinghe to tell her that she bought herbs at 100 Herbs building today. Chu Liwei did not care at all. If 100,000 white crystal coins could sway Mu Qinghe, then he would not have the magnanimity to survive until today. She knew that he would definitely do that, so she did not hesitate to spend money today. She called Chang Wanzhou to her room. Sit down and take his pulse. Chang Wanzhou sat obediently at the side and stretched out his hand. His wrist was very white and translucent, and the faint green blood vessels were clearly visible. But his hands were very rough, and there was a thick layer of calluses on his palms. And if one looked carefully, there were many old scars, and there was not a single piece of good skin. How did you get these injuries? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 500. Chang Wanzhou followed her gaze and glanced at his hand. I don't really remember. His tone was indifferent and normal, as if he was talking about something very normal. Chu Liu's heart skipped a beat. God knew how much suffering he had to go through to survive in Nanjiang's environment. However, he seemed to be used to it. Chu Liwei placed her finger gently on his wrist and injected a trace of force. As soon as she did, she felt a strong cold aura rushing toward her. Her eyes turned cold and she immediately increased her strength. However, the cold aura was strange and strong. Chu Liu's force almost couldn't move an inch in it. After a while, she summoned a transparent flame from the heavenly square cauldron and infused it with her force. The effect was immediate. The cold aura retreated quickly as if it had encountered something terrifying. Even the flesh and yuan meridians frozen by the cold aura seemed to show signs of loosening wherever the transparent karmic fire passed through. Chu Liwei was delighted. She didn't expect the flame in the heavenly square cauldron to deal with it so easily. Chang Wanzhou frowned in discomfort. Chu Liwei retracted her force and looked at him carefully. You're not feeling well? Chang Wanzhou nodded. It's like I'm burning up. Chu Liwei was a little surprised. She had wrapped the transparent flame with force just now. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be too hot. Why did Chang Wanzhou have such a big reaction? There's too much cold aura in your body. If you don't deal with it soon, you might freeze into an ice cube. Didn't you ask me for a fire seed because of this? Chang Wanzhou retracted his hand. His soft golden hair hung down and covered his eyes. I've just become a third-grade celestial physician. I can't help you condense a fire seed for now. However, I can at least help you recuperate. By the way, where did the cold aura in your body come from? How long has it been? It looks like, at least 10 years? Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips. It's been like this for as long as I can remember. Chu Liu's eyelids twitched. What did you say? The Jiang mansion. Jiang Yuqing returned to the mansion through the back door. He quietly returned to his courtyard and went to the study. When the servants who were guarding the study saw him return, they all bowed respectfully. Jiang Yuqing asked as he pushed the door open. Father didn't come today, right? Young master, the grand tutor is not here today. Madam, on the other hand, came by and left when she heard that you were resting. Jiang Yuqing nodded and walked to the chair behind his desk and sat down. Just continue to watch. This young master wants to be alone. Yes. The servant carefully closed the door. Jiang Yuqing took off the human skin mask on his face, leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes and rubbed his eyebrows. However, that young girl's smiling face appeared in his mind again. Jiang Yuqing was frustrated and suddenly stood up. The chair made a hurried and piercing sound on the floor. Jiang Yuqing knitted his brows and paced back and forth. He even felt as if he had been bewitched. Yuqing, what's wrong with you? A voice suddenly sounded from behind. Jiang Yuqing was shocked and turned around. A woman in a gorgeous palace gown was standing behind him without him knowing. Her facial features were beautiful and her makeup was exquisite. She looked like someone from a painting. Only that pair of eyes flashed with a cold glint from time to time. It was like a poisonous snake that made one feel uneasy. Jiang Yuqing suppressed the frustration in his heart, and his expression returned to its usual gentleness. Why are you here? Sheng Guanwan walked forward and leaned into his embrace. I missed you. You haven't entered the palace for a few days. I'm so bored by myself. It was supposed to be a warm, fragrant, and soft woman, but for some reason Jiang Yuqing was a little distracted. He hugged Sheng Guanwan's shoulders and lightly patted them. Didn't I tell you previously? I'll be busy preparing for the Wanzheng competition these few days, so I'll be busier and can't enter the palace to visit you often. After this period of time, I'll definitely accompany you properly, okay? Sheng Guanwan looked up at him. Oh right, didn't you go to watch the preliminaries today? How was it? Jiang Yuqing said, all right. There are a few good seedlings. Nurture them well and they'll definitely become very capable. You'll be able to see them later. Sheng Guanwan revealed a look of joy as she hugged Jiang Yuqing's waist tightly and rubbed her face against his chest as she acted coquettishly. I knew that Yuqing treats me the best. Jiang Yuqing nonchalantly replied with a grunt. Sheng Guanwan then realized that something was amiss with him. Yuqing, what's wrong? Are you thinking about something? He rarely revealed such an expression. Jiang Yuqing smiled and kissed her glabella. Nothing. I'm just a little tired today. Sheng Guanwan only thought that he was working hard because of the Wanzheng competition during this period of time, so she didn't ask much. However, she came in exchange for Jiang Yuqing's calm reaction, which inevitably made her unhappy. She let go of Jiang Yuqing and took 2 steps back with a cold expression. Then have a good rest. I'll get going first. How could Jiang Yuqing not tell that she was throwing a tantrum? All right. Don't be angry. Why don't you tell me how the situation in the palace has been recently? Didn't His Majesty start taking medicine some time ago? How is it now? Are there any signs of him waking up? Sheng Guanwan pouted. How would I know? I didn't go and take a look. Jiang Yuqing was dazed. You didn't go and take a look? Didn't I tell you previously to pay attention to His Majesty's situation at all times? You, Jiang Yuqing, are you ordering me? Imperial Father has always been watched. I just didn't want to go these 2 days. Do you have to be like this? I finally came out to see you today, and this is how you treat me? Sheng Guanwan was also anxious. Jiang Yuqing fiercely rubbed his face, suppressing the anger in his heart and patiently persuading her. It's not that I'm forcing you to do anything. It's just that it's a special period recently. You also know that in order to make His Majesty wake up, we've already used countless methods. Now that there are finally some signs, you must watch carefully. If something goes wrong, what can go wrong? Sheng Guanwan sneered. Right now the entire palace is filled with our people. After Imperial Father wakes up, he'll only know what he should know. What exactly are you worried about? Could it be that you're afraid that that slut will come back to life and take revenge on us? Jiang Yuqing's expression changed drastically. Sheng Guanwan was always like this. If she had nothing to do, she would make a fuss. Otherwise, she would feel uncomfortable all over. Especially after her Yuan meridian was damaged, she couldn't cultivate. Her temperament changed drastically, and she only thought about herself all day long. She didn't have any sense of the big picture at all. Normally, he would have the patience to coax her. But today he really wasn't in the mood. Moreover, her last sentence just now made his heart skip a beat. He said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Digression. This chapter took a full 20 minutes to upload. In the end, it was uploaded from the computer to the mobile phone. This backend was also drunk. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the AI network. Chapter 501. Sheng Guanwan was shocked. Jiang Yuqing had never been so angry at her before. She was also angry in her heart. Who are you talking nonsense? Jiang Yuqing, do you know who you are talking to now? Only then did Jiang Yuqing come to his senses. He turned around and took a few deep breaths before he gradually calmed down. I didn't mean to scold you. You also know that there have been too many things recently. If we're not careful, It wasn't easy for us to wait a few days. If we waste all our previous efforts because of a small matter, wouldn't it be too much of a loss? He walked in front of Sheng Guanwan again, intending to hug her in his arms. It wasn't easy for us to get together. Sheng Guanwan slapped his hand away and sneered, Jiang Yuqing, don't you think it's too fake for you to say this now? She had clearly seen the disgust on his face just now. Don't you think that I'm not good enough for you because my Yuan meridian is crippled? Let me tell you, there are plenty of people in the Tianling dynasty who want to take your place. Don't go too far. Sheng Guanwan was now in power, so she was naturally not afraid of Jiang Yuqing. Jiang Yuqing's expression changed. He was mocking and despising her in his heart. Sheng Guanwan still had not figured out what she relied on to be able to hold on for so long despite her Yuan meridian being damaged. If it wasn't for Jiang Yuqing said gently, you're really thinking too much. I'm doing all this for you. I've liked you for so many years. Don't you know best how I feel about you? It was only then that Sheng Guanwan's expression softened. Really? Of course it's true. I was too anxious just now, so I didn't choose my words carefully. You also know how much I hate that woman. You mentioned it so suddenly, of course don't take it to heart. These words finally reached Sheng Guanwan's heart. She snorted, that's good. I hate her too. Jiang Yuqing held her waist. Let's not talk about it in the future, okay? When His Majesty wakes up, we'll get married. Only then did Sheng Guanwan let the matter pass. You're not allowed to be so fierce to me in the future. Jiang Yuqing said with a smile, of course. His eyes flashed with an extremely cold light. Mu Clan. After hearing Chang Wanzhou's words, Chu Luiyue didn't react for a while. Then how did you survive all these years? If he had it since he was very young, he shouldn't have lived to this age. Chang Wanzhou said, I used to have a fire seed in my body, but a year ago that fire seed suddenly died out. I left Nanjiang and came to West Hill. Chu Luiyue guessed, the fire seed in your body was also given to you by that person? Yes. Then you must have known each other for a long time, right? Yes. Chu Luiyue was silent for a while. There were only two possibilities for the fire seed to suddenly die out. One was that the cultivator destroyed it himself, and the other was that the celestial physician who condensed the fire seed died. If it was the former possibility, Chang Wanzhou should have been burned by the fire seed in his body. However, she had just checked and found no. In other words, the person he was looking for was very likely dead. Knock knock. There was a sudden knock on the door. Miss Chu, the 100 Herbs building has sent the things you want. It was Duan Ziyu's voice. Chu Luiyue stood up and walked over to open the door. Duan Ziyu was instructing the people in the mansion to send in those things, which were piled up into a small mountain. Chu Luiyue glanced at his expression and found that he had calmed down in the face of these things. She went forward and counted them personally. Yes, this is it. After those people left, she began to pick out some of them and put them into her Chengkuan bag. As soon as she moved, Duan Ziyu came over and presented something with both hands. Miss Chu, the Vice General was worried that it would be inconvenient for you to carry these things, so he specially prepared an Chengkuan ring for you. It will save you a lot of trouble. Chu Luiyue turned her head and saw a silver Chengkuan ring lying quietly in his palm. Did Vice Admiral Mu really say that? She looked at Duan Ziyu with a faint smile. Duan Ziyu's expression remained unchanged as he said, yes. In fact, his original words were, let her buy it. Let her fill the Chengkuan ring if she has the ability. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up. It would be a waste not to take advantage of a free gift. Mu Qinghe owed her more than 100,000 white crystal coins. She picked up the Chengkuan ring without any guilt and injected a trace of force into it. A light flashed on the Chengkuan ring, which meant that it recognized her as its owner. Chu Luiyue checked it and found that the space inside was huge. It was more difficult to make a Chengkuan ring than a Chengkuan bag, and it had more space, so it was more expensive. This Chengkuan ring alone cost a few thousand white crystal coins. However, compared to what she had spent before, it was just a drop in the ocean. Since Mu Qinghe didn't care, she wouldn't care either. Is Vice Admiral Mu busy now? I want to thank him personally. Chu Luiyue looked sincere. Duan Ziyu coughed. The Vice General said that you have to attend the Wanzheng competition tomorrow, so you should rest well today. Other things aren't urgent now. Chu Luiyue touched her nose. Mu Qinghe probably didn't want to see her now. In that case, I'll have to trouble Lieutenant Duan to help me convey my gratitude. Duan Ziyu hurriedly agreed. Chu Luiyue put the herbs into the Chengkuan ring and turned to go back into the house. Chang Wanzhou was still sitting there waiting for her. Chu Luiyue took out a medicinal cauldron and took out all the herbs she needed, arranging them neatly at the side. She placed her hand at the entrance of the cauldron, and a ball of red flame instantly burned in the cauldron. She took out the green spiritual snake fruit and threw it in. A refreshing aroma instantly filled the air. Tongues of fire danced around the green spiritual snake fruit, and the fruit skin gradually turned red. The flesh inside also gradually became transparent, and in the end, it was like a piece of red fruit skin wrapped in a ball of transparent liquid. At a certain point, the fruit skin cracked and the fruit juice inside flowed out. Chu Luiyue added the silver frost flower at the same time. When the transparent fruit juice dripped onto the silver frost flower, it immediately melted the frost on the blue petals. Then, the blue petals quickly turned into a small cluster of blue flames. A gust of hot air spread out from it. Duan Ziyu, who was standing outside, also smelled this faint medicinal fragrance and couldn't help but be slightly surprised. He knew that Chu Luiyue was a celestial physician, but he always thought that her standard wouldn't be much. On one hand, there were very few people who could be an outstanding celestial physician while possessing the cultivation talent of the Daijing Yuan Meridian. On the other hand, her background was indeed ordinary. One had to know that cultivating an outstanding celestial physician required a lot of manpower and resources. When Chu Luiyue bought those precious herbs, he actually didn't think much of it in his heart. After all, the rarer the treasure, the harder it was to condense a good medicinal effect. But now it seemed that Chu Luiyue was stronger than he imagined. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 502. Duan Ziyu thought for a moment and left. He's gone, Chang Wanzhou said coldly. Chu Luiyue took out new herbs and threw them into the cauldron as she smiled. I know. You're deliberately refining pills for him to see, Chang Wanzhou said firmly. Chu Luiyue was still smiling. Yes. I spent so much money on Vice Admiral Mu, so I have to let him know, right? Besides, Mu Qinghe knew that she could refine pills and that she could already form pills. No one would say anything if she showed off her skills. Chang Wanzhou looked at her for a while before asking. Did he offend you? Chu Luiyue didn't stop moving. She controlled the flames in the cauldron and divided them into several areas to refine. When all the herbs were refined, she poured another flame into the cauldron. Boom. The flames in the cauldron rose. She fused all the herbs together. Chu Luiyue began to try to form the pills. Why do you ask? She stared at the pills that were gradually forming and asked calmly. I can tell. Chang Wanzhou vaguely sensed that Chu Luiyue seemed to be a little unhappy. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. Although Chang Wanzhou didn't know the ways of the world, he was extremely smart and sharp. Not really. It's just a small conflict. Chang Wanzhou didn't think so, but he didn't say anything else. Time passed bit by bit. The two of them didn't speak again. The entire room was so quiet that only the sound of the flames burning the herbs was exceptionally clear. In the middle of the night, the pill of essence was finally condensed. Buzz. A fluctuation spread out from the pill of essence. Chu Luiyue was delighted. She was originally a little worried that she wouldn't succeed, but fortunately her strength had greatly increased after she broke through to the third stage of the warrior realm, and it became much easier for her to form the pill. For others, there were too many things to learn and practice in order to break through on the path of celestial physician. However, this was not the case for her. In her previous life, she was already an 8th grade celestial physician. Even now, those prescriptions and techniques were still intact in her mind. As long as her force continued to increase, she would be able to smoothly break through to the rank of celestial physician. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and the pill flew into her palm. This pill was green in color, and there were 3 distinct crimson lines on it, with one more faintly discernible. Chu Luiyue nodded with satisfaction and handed the pill to Chang Wanzhou. Then he placed his hand on the cauldron again. Not long after, an identical medicinal pill appeared within the crimson flames. The familiar fluctuation came again. An idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind, and the pill flew toward Chang Wanzhou. Chang Wanzhou sized up the 2 green pills in his hand, then looked at Chu Luiyue. Most celestial physician could only refine 1 pill at a time, but Chu Luiyue could refine so many at the same time. He was starting to suspect that she was lying when she said that she couldn't condense a fire seed. The 3rd pill was successfully refined. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and the pill landed in her palm. Only then did she extinguish the flames in the cauldron. When she turned around and saw Chang Wanzhou's suspicious expression, she smiled and raised her eyebrows. I'm not lying to you. I really can't condense a fire seed now. I was able to refine these 3 pills only because the herbs I used were not bad. Also, the cold evil energy in your body has existed for many years. If I use too strong of a medicine from the beginning, it will only do more harm than good. Take these 3 pills once every 10 days and take your time to figure out how to use them. Only then did Chang Wanzhou believe her. He nodded and swallowed one of the pills in his hand. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth, and a warm aura quickly spread out. Chang Wanzhou's eyes lit up. Chu Luiyue packed the remaining 2 pills for him. Go back and recuperate. You might need to help me in the future competition. Chang Wanzhou nodded seriously. I'm your follower now. This is what I should do. Chu Luiyue smiled and didn't argue with him. She let him go back. After Chang Wanzhou left, she sat cross-legged and began to regulate her breathing. After the battle with Zhao Yunji today, she clearly felt that the force in her body seemed to have become more solid. She was also getting closer to breaking through the barrier of a stage 4 warrior. On a quiet night, the night wind blew. However, in a certain room in the Xiaohou residence, it wasn't so peaceful. Xiaohou Rong frowned and looked at his second son standing in front of him. Tingan, what's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to get along well with Jiang Yuji? It's already time to talk about marriage, but you suddenly made her angry. What's wrong with you? Xiaohou Tingan looked frustrated. You really can't blame me for today's matter. As he spoke, he briefly recounted what had happened in the 100 Herbs building. Thinking of Jiang Yuji's appearance back then, he was still furious. There's a first time, there will be a second time. Since I open my mouth today, she'll be even worse tomorrow and dig out our Xiaohou family's foundation. He had also tried to like Jiang Yuji before. After all, her background and looks were considered good. However, her personality. He really couldn't stand it. Xiaohou Rong held a pair of metal walnuts in his hands and said after a while, her personality is spoiled. Her temper is a little spoiled, but who asked her to have a good father and a good brother? So many people want to get close to the Jiang family now. What can you do even if you tolerate it? How about this? If it involves Jiang Yuji in the future, you can make an extra payment. You don't have to let the other people in the residence know. However, Xiaohou Tingan said, we haven't even gotten engaged and she's already like this. I wonder what will happen when we get married in the future. I think it's fine if we don't get engaged. But Xiaohou Rong suddenly slammed the table. Are you crazy? Digression. The recent updates aren't displayed. Everyone can click on the table of contents and click on the reverse order, and it will appear. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 503. Xiaohou Tingan shuddered and unknowingly took 2 steps back. Xiaohou Rong angrily said, what have I told you over the past year? Have you forgotten all of it? Jiang Yuqing only has this biological sister. As long as you make her happy, you can have anything you want. You're about to get engaged, but you want to give up at this time? You have to know that with her current status, she's more than enough for you. If you don't want to serve her, there are plenty of people fighting to do it. Xiaohou Tingan knew all this. If not, he wouldn't have tolerated Jiang Yuji for so long. But as time passed, he became more and more resistant to this matter. Jiang Yuji had been arrogant since she was young. After Jiang Yuqing took over, she relied on this identity and became even worse. What happened in the 100 Herbs building today was just a prelude. He really didn't want to see Jiang Yuji's arrogant face. Seeing that Xiaohou Tingan didn't say anything, Xiaohou Rong was afraid that he would really be ruthless and make things worse. Hence, he softened his tone and said earnestly, a man is a man. You have to know when to yield and when not to. As long as you can stabilize Jiang Yuji, you'll be able to achieve great things in the future. You also know that among your brothers, father values you the most. In the future, this family business will be handed to you sooner or later. You have to make me feel assured. This sentence finally made Xiaohou Tingan waver. Each of his brothers had their own strengths. Actually, he wasn't the most outstanding. His biggest trump card was Jiang Yuqing, who was behind Jiang Yuji. Even though his wedding with the third princess hadn't happened yet, who didn't know that Jiang Yuqing was already the most powerful person in the Tianling dynasty? I'll go to the Jiang residence tomorrow to apologize, said Xiaohou Tingan. He grunted. Xiaohou Rong then heaved a sigh of relief, and the wrinkles on his face relaxed. He walked forward and patted Xiaohou Tingan's shoulders. Not bad. You didn't let me down for thinking highly of you all these years. Xiaohou Tingan forced a smile. The next morning, Chu Luiyue brought Chang Wanzhou to Xuanji Square, and Duan Ziyu naturally accompanied them. Compared to the previous day, there were a lot more people, and the square was even more lively. Elder Qiushi and Elder Duanmu Chun were already waiting in the middle of the square. Other than the 2 of them, there were 6 other old men in white robes standing at the side. The 8 of them stood in pairs in 4 directions. There was an empty space in the middle. As for the contestants who had won the previous day, they had all gathered and stood at the edge of the square. Chu Luiyue quickly glanced around and frowned. What was going on with the Wanjing meet? 8 royal elders had come at once. Such a scale was truly rare. Soon it was time. Elder Qiushi and the others looked at each other and nodded. Then, several people attacked at the same time. 8 vigorous origin powers instantly converged together. The void suddenly fluctuated, and the 8 origin forces intertwined to form a vortex. In the depths of the vortex, a transparent octagonal barrier slowly emerged. In the middle of the barrier, a strange pattern was faintly discernible. A powerful divine pressure suddenly spread out from the barrier. Chu Liyue's heart trembled violently. This pressure. As you can see, this is a barrier, but at the same time, it's also a special teleportation array. Elder Qiushi looked at the transparent octagonal barrier and couldn't hide his excitement. The destination of this teleportation array is the Tianling God Realm. After a short moment of dead silence, the entire square was instantly in an uproar. Tianling God Realm? Is that where the Tianling dynasty's Taizu passed away? I heard that back then, Taizu summoned the Heavenly Dao and wanted to break through to become a stage 9 martial artist. But in the end, due to various reasons, he didn't succeed. Instead, he left the Heavenly Dao behind, and that mystic realm was called the Tianling God Realm from then on. But isn't that place only accessible to the royal family? Why is it now? Elder Qiushi pressed his hands together and waited for the discussion in the square to gradually die down before he said excitedly. Looks like everyone has some understanding of the Tianling God Realm. That's right. Previously, only those with royal bloodline could enter the Tianling God Realm. But after thinking for a long time, the third princess thinks that opening up the Tianling God Realm to allow more cultivators to have the chance to become strong is a better choice. So, the Wanzheng competition this time will be held in the Tianling God Realm. Chu Liyue's face was cold. His hands in his sleeves were clenched into fists, and his knuckles turned white. The Tianling God Realm was left behind by the Taizu, and Shang Wanwan actually dared to do this privately. This was undoubtedly disrespectful. Even she hadn't entered that place before. She originally planned to go after becoming a stage 9 martial artist, but before she could do so, Shang Wanwan and Jiang Yuqing had already plotted against her. She never expected that Shang Wanwan had already sealed herself to such an extent. What Elder Qiushi said just now was just a high-sounding reason. The Tianling God Realm was filled with danger, and those with low cultivation levels would only die if they entered. Perhaps only Shang Wanwan herself knew what exactly she wanted to do. No, perhaps there was also Jiang Yuqing. Chu Liyue was filled with rage, but the others clearly didn't think so. Tianling God Realm. It's actually the Tianling God Realm. If I can go in once, I'll have no regrets in my life. I heard that the Taizu left behind many treasures there back then. We might be able to obtain some fortuitous opportunities this time. The third princess is really magnanimous. She's actually willing to open up the Tianling God Realm. Such breadth of mind is truly unmatched. The surrounding contestants were all agitated and excited. They were all geniuses with Daijing Yuan meridians and were extremely confident in themselves. This time was no exception. Besides, who didn't want to become stronger? With such an opportunity, they naturally wouldn't let it go. Elder Qiushi continued. There's still no time limit for the competition this time. Whoever stays in there for the longest time will get first place. Everyone looked at each other for a moment. The competition rules were a little strange. As if sensing everyone's doubts, Elder Qiushi explained, the Heavenly Dao suppression in the Tianling God Realm is extremely strong. The stronger one's talent and strength, the more they can withstand such power. Hence, the longer one stays in there, the more benefits it will bring to the cultivators. Everyone nodded in understanding. Their eyes lit up and they couldn't wait to enter now. Elder Qiushi raised his finger and pointed at the black jade slab floating in midair. The name of each of you is recorded here. Every time someone comes out, their name will automatically disappear from here. The person who stays in the end will be the biggest winner. His words stirred everyone up. Chu Liyue looked on coldly. If she could, she wanted to stop this strange competition immediately, but she knew she couldn't. The only thing she could do now was to continue the competition and see with her own eyes what exactly they were planning to do. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 504. Everyone, enter according to the order. Someone immediately stepped forward after Elder Qiushi gave the order. The first young man walked to the octagonal barrier, unable to hide his excitement. He reached out his hand. As soon as he touched the barrier, a silver light suddenly flashed and enveloped his entire body. Soon, his figure disappeared in front of everyone. The second person followed closely behind. Chang Wanzhou suddenly said, I can't follow you anymore. Chu Liyue glanced at him and nodded slightly. I'm 53 and you're 92. There's a gap in the middle. After entering, there's a high chance that we won't be able to be together. Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips. I'll look for you. Chu Liyue was slightly stunned. The corners of her lips curled up. Just as she was about to say something, she heard him say again. Before I find you, the contract won't count for the time being. Only then did Chu Luiyue understand what he meant. He was saying that the agreement would be postponed for every day that he didn't fulfill his obligation as an attendant. Actually, this is nothing. It'll be good if we can meet, but if not, I'll definitely find you, Chang Wanzhou said stubbornly. Chu Luiyue smiled. Okay. Sometimes this child's stubbornness was quite interesting. Soon, it was Chu Luiyue's turn. She walked over. Standing in front of it, the pattern on the barrier became even clearer. This was the totem of the Tianling dynasty. It had a dragon's head and a lion's body, ferocious and majestic. A sharp sword hung above its head. This pattern was also engraved on the military flag of the Black Cavalry. It was rumored that the Taizu personally drew it back then. There were also different opinions about this totem. The most well-known explanation was that the Taizu once held a sharp sword and beheaded the dragon's head. His reputation was illustrious. That was why he drew such a totem later. However, no one could be sure of the truth. Chu Luiyue had once flipped through all the history books of the Tianling dynasty. The Taizu didn't leave behind a single word about this totem. Back then she was full of yearning for the Tianling god realm. As the second person in the Tianling dynasty, other than the Taizu, with the Tianjing Yuan meridian in the past 1,000 years, not only to the world but also herself was full of confidence and expectations. Many people in the royal family had entered the Tianling god realm to obtain the Taizu's inheritance, but they all failed in the end. Chu Luiyue once thought that she might be able to do it. But she didn't expect that she actually entered to enter the Tianling god realm with another identity. She took a deep breath and extended her hand toward the barrier. She felt a cool touch and a white light flashed in front of her eyes. She was immediately pulled in by a force. After a bout of dizziness, Chu Luiyue finally felt her feet on solid ground. She focused her gaze and looked forward. She was instantly stunned by the scene in front of her. This was a huge space that stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky seemed to have been split in the middle by something. Half of the sky was covered with purplish-orange clouds, and it was as dark as night. A bright moon hung in the sky and a cold wind blew. Transparent water could be seen everywhere, and everything in the sky was reflected in it. The other half was cloudless and it was as bright as day. The sun emitted a blinding light, shining on the dry and cracked ground. At a glance, not a single blade of grass grew. It was desolate and withered. At this moment she was standing in the middle of this dividing line. She looked down. The water on her left flowed quietly, but it seemed to be blocked by a transparent barrier, and it never crossed the boundary. On the dry land on her right, cracks spread across the ground like spider webs. The wind that carried coarse sand always turned back when it reached the boundary. Everything on both sides seemed to never intersect, and was thus isolated. When Chu Luiyue saw this, she was extremely shocked. So, this was how the Tianling god realm looked like. She looked around but she didn't see the people who came in earlier. As expected, they were separated. Chu Luiyue stood where she was for a while. By the looks of it, she clearly had to make a choice. She turned around and walked toward the left. She stepped into the water and circles of ripples spread out. The clear water just covered the soles of her shoes. She paused. After confirming that the water didn't continue to spread, and that she didn't feel anything special, she continued walking forward. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt the piercing cold wind around her. The force in her body was starting to disperse without her noticing. Chu Luiyue hastily condensed her force, but she realized that she couldn't stop this at all. Her body was like a container with a crack. The origin power contained within was slowly flowing away like a stream of water. However, she didn't know what the problem was. Chu Luiyue retreated without hesitation. She glanced at the water that seemed to stretch to the end of the sky with lingering fear. She could even see the bright moon reflected in it. However, she was no longer in the mood to admire the beautiful scenery. Instead, she was filled with fear. She stood in the middle again. Then she walked to the right. The moment she stepped on the dry and cracked ground, a scorching heat wave hit her in the face. Fortunately, Chu Luiyue was a celestial physician, so her tolerance for fire was still very high. She was slightly relieved and walked forward. After a while, her forehead and body were covered in sweat, and her throat was very dry. Walking under the dazzling and scorching sun, her whole body felt like it was being roasted by fire. Chu Luiyue coughed. She felt like smoke was going to come out of her throat. Just as she was hesitating whether to summon the flames in her body to resist the scorching heat, she suddenly felt something slowly seeping into her body along her skin. She immediately frowned. Only then did she realize that what was entering her body wasn't anything else but thick and dense force. The density of heaven and earth force here wasn't high, but it seemed to be controlled by something and kept flowing into her body. As expected of the Tianling God realm. It's really the best place for cultivation. At this moment, cheers suddenly came from afar. Chu Luiyue looked up. Was a young man. She didn't know when he had appeared here. His clothes were almost completely drenched in sweat. His forehead was full of sweat and his cheeks were red. However, he didn't care at all and kept walking forward. Obviously he had been here for a while. His face was filled with excitement as if he had opened a treasure trove. Chu Luiyue sharply realized that his aura was rising at an extremely fast speed. The speed of the heaven and earth force flowing into his body was several times faster than hers. A trace of uneasiness appeared in Chu Luiyue's heart. There was a limit to the endurance of an ordinary cultivator's physical body. If the heaven and earth force absorbed exceeded one's limit, then would be harmful. In serious cases, it would even cause permanent damage to the body and even cause death. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiyue saw the young man suddenly stagger and spit out a mouthful of blood with a red face. Wonderful book house. Chapter 505. The man was shocked as well. At the same time he finally realized that something was wrong. He wanted to stop the force from entering his body, but he was shocked to find that he couldn't control it at all. The surrounding force of heaven and earth was still pouring into his body. His body was boiling hot and his face was red. The force in his body was surging, and he spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He hurriedly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, but from the corner of his eye, he saw that his sleeve was already red. That was the blood on his arm. He hurriedly rolled up his sleeves and looked at his arm. He didn't know when, but there was a bloody wound that was about an inch long. Fresh blood flowed out and quickly dyed his sleeve red. What's going on? He muttered softly, his face full of fear. Then, as if he suddenly realized something, he turned and ran. He wanted to return to the center. However, he fell to the ground before he could take 2 steps. He struggled to get up and there were actually bloodstains on the ground. The other parts of his body were also starting to be torn apart by the violent force. He was still quite a distance away from the center of the 2 skies. It would be very difficult for him to return in time if he relied on his own strength. Then he looked around and finally saw Chu Luiyue. I beg you, help me. He let out an urgent and weak cry for help. Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze and continued walking. She didn't have any extra sympathy, especially for this kind of greedy person. Since he dared to participate in the Wanzheng competition, he should have made the corresponding preparations. He could only blame himself for coming to this point. Help me. I can repay you. Chu Luiyue didn't even turn her head. The pitiful cries for help gradually turned into vulgar curses. However, the voice quickly turned into surprised cheers again. Thank you. Thank you. I really don't know how to thank you. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. A white-clothed woman walked up to the man and helped him up. She asked softly, "What's wrong? Are you all right? Can you still walk?" The man said gratefully, Please help me back. I can't stay here any longer." As he spoke, more blood flowed out of his body. The woman smiled gently. "Okay." After saying that, he suddenly pulled out a rope from his sleeve and tied the man up. She had just arrived and was much stronger than the man. Plus, the man was unprepared, so she easily subdued him. What are you doing?" Only then did he realize that something was wrong, so he shouted fiercely. The woman shook her wrist and threw the man to the ground. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The back of the man's head hit the ground. He was in so much pain that his face for a moment. The woman still had a gentle and generous smile on her face. "Didn't you want me to help you? I'll help you." Then she used the ropes pulled the man's. A long trail of blood was drawn on the ground. The man's the one's. Just as he was about to curse, he found that his mouth was full of blood and he couldn't say a word. His throat seemed to be choked by something, and he only managed to make a few sounds before his movements gradually quieted down. After being dragged for a distance, he finally fainted. The woman stopped and walked forward, intending to check his breathing. The bronze bead in the man's hand suddenly emitted a ray of light and enveloped him. The woman quickly took a few steps back. After the ray of light disappeared, the man's figure was also gone. Only the bloodstains on the ground that hadn't dried up showed what had just happened. The woman said unwillingly, "You're lucky." Although she didn't kill him, she still drove him out of the competition. She could get rid of as many people as she could. She turned around and bumped into Chu Luiyue. The two of them looked at each other. A trace of panic flashed through the woman's eyes. She didn't see that there was another person here at all. Did she see everything just now? Chu Luiyue looked her up and down. Looking at her clothes, she seemed to be from Shenfeng Hall. She couldn't help but smile. This vicious and merciless temperament was really from the same origin. The hall master of Shenfeng Hall was a ruthless person. He had fought with her many times in the open and in the dark. Now she actually met one of them again. Moreover, this woman's face looked a little familiar. The woman's expression changed very quickly. She smiled at Chu Luiyue. I recognize you. You're Chu Luiyue, aren't you? Chu Luiyue had only been in West Hill for 2 or 3 days, but she had already become famous. She wasn't surprised that this woman recognized her. She nodded and asked in return, You are? I'm Ning Jiaojiao. She smiled. Chu Luiyue suddenly remembered this person's identity. The only daughter of the hall master of Shenfeng Hall, Ning Binghai Ning Jiaojiao. She actually came too? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Ning Jiaojiao could only be considered delicate and pretty. She was easily overlooked in a crowd. Moreover, although she was talented, those who participated in the Wanzheng competition were all top geniuses. She didn't stand out in the qualifiers the day before. That was why Chu Luiyue didn't notice her. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't speak, Ning Jiaojiao felt a little guilty. Oh, I wanted to take him out just now, but, she wanted to find an excuse, but she didn't know how much Chu Luiyue saw. Chu Luiyue smiled. Aren't we the only two here? Ning Jiaojiao was stunned, then smiled. Yes. Chu Luiyue didn't like to look for trouble, so he took the initiative to clarify. Ning Jiaojiao was obviously relieved. Chu Luiyue said, I have something to do, so I'll leave first. With that, he turned around and was about to leave. Wait. Ning Jiaojiao suddenly called out to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue glanced at her again. Miss Ning, is there anything else? Ning Jiaojiao's expression had returned to its usual gentle and generous expression. As she walked forward, she said, Miss Chu, don't you think this place is very strange? Chu Luiyue looked around. It's all right. She didn't expect Taizu to leave such a place behind. However, after the initial shock, she recalled Taizu's great achievements of conquering the world and opening up new territories and felt relieved. The smile on Ning Jiaojiao's face froze. It's all right? What does he mean? Is he saying that I'm ignorant, or he doesn't want to talk to me at all? She couldn't accept either of the two. She suppressed the anger in her heart and smiled faintly. Miss Chu, look. This place is desolate and remote, and it's full of strangeness. Why don't we work together? Chu Luiyue glanced at her with a faint smile. Did Ning Jiaojiao think that everyone in the world was so brainless? No need. I still have to find someone, so it's not convenient for me to go with you. With that, Chu Luiyue turned around and was about to leave. Ning Jiaojiao paused and said, In that case, I'd like to ask a question. What's your relationship with Jian Fengqi of Dragon Teeth Mountain? Wonderful Book House. Chapter 506. I have nothing to do with young Master Jian. Chu Luiyue said honestly. Ning Jiaojiao didn't quite believe her. How can that be? Wasn't young Master Jian the one who brought Miss Chu to the Wanzheng competition? Chu Luiyue glanced at her. It turned out that Ning Jiaojiao had already investigated and was asking her on purpose. However, it was obvious that her investigation wasn't very good. After all, the one who really had something to do with her was Mu Qinghe. However, she didn't admit or deny it. So, young Master Jian has a free and easy temperament. It's rare to see him do such things. It can be seen that he truly admires Miss Chu. Ning Jiaojiao's expression didn't change, but her tone was a little sour. Chu Luiyue finally understood and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was Ning Jiaojiao jealous? What was she thinking? How could she be jealous of something like this? Jian Fengqi had been a playboy for many years and had countless admirers. If she was jealous of a girl, she should have died of jealousy long ago. Miss Ning, don't misunderstand. There's really nothing between young Master Jian and me. He was only responsible for bringing me to Xiling. The rest has nothing to do with him. I still have things to do, so I'll take my leave first. With that, Chu Luiyue didn't say anything else and turned to leave. Hey, Ning Jiaojiao called out, but Chu Luiyue didn't stop and quickly walked away. Looking at that slender and exquisite figure, the smile on Ning Jiaojiao's face gradually disappeared. Nothing to do with her? She didn't believe it. She had already asked her father previously. Jian Fengqi wasn't among the people sent out by the Wanzheng competition this time. However, he actually brought Chu Luiyue back and let her participate in the Wanzheng competition. Wasn't this clearly giving Chu Luiyue a chance? Who outside heaven's canopy didn't want to come in? Who didn't want to have a place in Xiling? This Chu Luiyue used some unknown method to persuade Jian Fengqi to help her. This time she must teach Chu Luiyue a lesson. Chu Luiyue continued to go deeper. Sweat kept dripping from her head, face and body, but before it could drip down, it had already evaporated. After walking for a while, she finally summoned the flames in her body. A layer of crimson flames instantly surrounded her. Chu Luiyue hadn't even had the time to breathe a sigh of relief when she suddenly discovered something even more frightening. The surrounding origin power of heaven and earth had suddenly sped up and surged into her body. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Only then did he realize that the flames on his body were actively devouring this energy. She seemed to have sensed something and looked towards her dantian. Sure enough, she discovered that the water droplet had already begun to slowly rotate. The power that had entered its body was quickly absorbed by it. But to Chu Luiyue's relief, when the power fell into the water droplet, it was like a drop of water falling into the sea, silent and calm. The power that had been devoured only flowed through the Yuan meridian in her body and finally gathered in the water droplet. Chu Luiyue blinked in surprise. In this way, on one hand she could refine her Yuan meridian, and on the other hand she didn't have to worry about being unable to withstand the power and ending up in the same situation as the man from before. Chu Luiyue retracted the flames around her body. The speed of the origin power of heaven and earth had slowed down slightly, but perhaps because it was gradually going deeper, the speed was also gradually increasing. Chu Luiyue was emboldened and continued forward under the scorching sun. As she walked, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from afar. Chu Luiyue looked as far as she could and saw a huge black sword at the place where heaven and earth met. That black sword seemed to have fallen from the sky and pierced into the ground. A vast and holy aura spread out from it. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a strange sense of familiarity in her heart. This aura, she had felt it before. In the Imperial Ancestral Hall, she had seen the relics left behind by the Taizu Emperor. Those devices had such an aura. She increased her speed and walked forward. After some time she finally saw the appearance of that black sword. The pitch-black body of the sword was as deep and boundless as the dark night. A silver bolt of lightning suddenly flashed. It slithered away like a startled snake. It caused icy blue sparks to fly everywhere. In an instant huge waves of emotion surged in her heart. This was the Taizu Emperor's sword. It was rumored that the Taizu Emperor Shangguanjing had once borrowed 81 Tianlei Dragon Abyss swords. Summon the heavenly Tao and slay divine beasts. Sweep across the world and be invincible. Later on, the Taizu Emperor failed to break through to the 9th stage and passed away in the Tianling God realm. The Dragon Abyss sword that he carried with him was also left somewhere in the Tianling God realm. For thousands of years, the Tianling imperial family had tried all sorts of ways to get the Dragon Abyss sword back, but they had never succeeded. Chu Luiyue had always thought that it was because the Dragon Abyss sword was hidden too well, and no one had ever found it. But now, it seemed that the Dragon Abyss sword was on the ground. She could easily see it. Then why did all the records in the imperial family's secret scrolls say that no one had ever seen the Dragon Abyss sword? Chu Luiyue felt that she had fallen into a huge mystery. The fog in front of her was thick and she couldn't see anything clearly. She took a deep breath and looked at the huge Dragon Abyss sword. Even from such a far distance, he could still feel the sacred and vast aura of suppression. She seemed to be attracted by something and walked forward. Suddenly she stepped on something. She looked down and her pupils constricted. It was actually a piece of white bone. From the shape it seemed to be a human arm. And it seemed to be quite old. Chu Luiyue looked around and finally saw another piece of white bone in front of her. That was the direction towards the Dragon Abyss sword. Chu Luiyue vaguely guessed something. She walked towards the Dragon Abyss sword step by step. The closer she got, the scarier the surrounding temperature became, and the faster the heaven and earth force surged into her body. Fortunately, Chu Luiyue had a mid-level Daijing Yuan meridian, and she didn't have to worry about being unable to withstand the force. That water droplet was like a bottomless pit, constantly swallowing the force. Every once in a while she would see scattered white bones on the ground. Finally, when she saw the skull that had been split in half, her heart skipped a beat. If she didn't guess wrongly, there should be someone who wanted to take the Dragon Abyss sword, but was injured by something, and his body was constantly being cut. Until the skull was cut in half, that person finally stopped. How much willpower did he have? Chu Luiyue stood beside the skull and looked at the Dragon Abyss sword. Between heaven and earth, it was empty. Only this Dragon Abyss sword stood majestically. Chu Luiwei recalled the traces of the white bones that she saw just now. It was clearly cut off by something sharp. In all directions it was empty and there was no wind. A chill suddenly rose from the bottom of Chu Luiwei's feet. Only the Dragon Abyss sword was able to produce such power. Just as she thought of this, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded through heaven and earth. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 507. Chu Luiwei heard a roar in her ears. That deep and vigorous sword hum entered her ears and went straight to her heart. In the next moment, a biting cold black sword chi suddenly flew out from the long yuan sword. It charged towards Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei tiptoed and quickly retreated. But how powerful was the sword chi of the long yuan sword? In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in front of Chu Luiwei. It almost pierced through her forehead. Chu Luiwei suddenly waved a fire whip in her hand. It struck towards the sword chi. The two forces collided fiercely. The red fire whip was actually scattered by the sword chi in an instant. Chu Luiwei was slightly shocked and immediately threw out the colored glaze barrier. Ding! A clear and crisp sound was heard. That terrifying sword chi hit the colored glaze barrier. Just as Chu Luiwei's mind was spinning crazily, thinking of how to take advantage of this opportunity to quickly escape, she was shocked to see that the sword chi was actually blocked by the colored glaze barrier. Several silver streams of light flowed back and forth on the colored glaze barrier, gorgeous and brilliant. That black sword chi was blocked by it, but it was unable to move forward even half an inch. Chu Luiwei was full of shock. This long yuan sword was a divine weapon, so it was easy to imagine how terrifying the sword chi it produced was. But this colored glaze barrier actually blocked it? An absurd conjecture suddenly appeared in her mind. The colored glaze barrier that Rongxiu gave her, could it also be? She was sure that the first one that Rongxiu gave her was definitely not this powerful. Otherwise, Rongxiu would not give her a second one because it was damaged. Just now, in a moment of desperation, she just casually threw out the colored glaze barrier. Who knew that it actually blocked the terrifying sword chi? Boom! The sword chi dissipated. Chu Luiwei stared blankly. It was solved just like that? This was to go forward? A voice suddenly came from the bottom of her heart. It was the legendary three-eyed eagle. Chu Luiwei asked doubtfully, "What?" "There is the skeleton of a divine beast under that sword." The legendary three-eyed eagle said quickly and concisely. Although its voice was as cold as ever, Chu Luiwei could hear a hint of excitement in its voice. Chu Luiwei blinked his eyes and asked incredulously, "What? Don't tell me you want me to get it for you?" Was there a mistake? That was the Dragon Abyss sword. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, "If you want to help me recover my physical body, the bones of divine beasts are essential. Therefore you must go this time." Chu Luiwei was unwilling to give up and asked, "It's not like this is the only place in this world that has divine beast skeletons. Let's go somewhere else to find them." "Where?" the legendary three-eyed eagle asked coldly. "As long as it is a divine beast, its bones must be returned to its clan after death." To be able to find the skeleton of a divine beast that had been left out, this kind of opportunity was hard to come by. If he gave up today, it would be difficult for him to find another one in the future. Chu Luiwei rubbed the space between his eyebrows. "But you saw what happened just now. The Dragon Abyss sword is a divine weapon. Anyone who wants to get close to it will die. The power of a sword chi is already so terrifying. If I go now, won't I be courting death? Didn't you stop it?" "Chu Luiwei, that divine beast skeleton is suppressed by that sword. I can't determine which clan it belongs to for the time being. But when you get it, you will naturally know." Chu Luiwei, she closed her eyes and kept reminding herself in her heart that this was her contracted divine beast. This was her contracted divine beast. The divine beast that she found had to suffer even if it had to. "Is there no other way?" Chu Luiwei asked faintly. "Why don't you go and try first and see if you can get that divine beast skeleton back?" The legendary three-eyed eagle sneered mercilessly. "Chu Luiwei, I'll go, okay?" After saying that, Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and approached the Dragon Abyss sword again. At the same time in the Xuanji Square, after all the contestants went in, the people in the square didn't leave. Although they couldn't see the exciting battles, they could at least see which of the names on the black jade board disappeared first. Moreover, those people had entered the Tianling God realm through the octagonal transportation portal. How rare was such an opportunity? Everyone was curious and excited. Naturally, they were willing to stay a little longer to see the results of the competition. "I really don't know what the Tianling God realm is like. It's a pity that we don't have the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Otherwise we can also go in and take a look. Yeah. Even if we can only take a look, our lives will be worth it. In the past, so many top experts wanted to go in but they couldn't. I just don't know who can stay in there the longest and get first place. Maybe there are many Taizu treasures inside. Look. Someone's name is disappearing. Countless pairs of eyes looked at the floating black jade board. Number 31 Wuing. The 8 elders looked at each other. A figure was suddenly sent out of the transportation portal. Everyone looked over in unison. The young man seemed to have fainted. He was covered in blood and looked very miserable. The whole square was silent for a moment. All the excitement, anticipation, and envy from before seemed to have been splashed with a bucket of cold water, and it was suddenly extinguished. At this moment they suddenly realized that the Tianling God realm was full of opportunities, but at the same time, it was also extremely dangerous. How long has it been since he went in? He's already injured to this extent. Looking at the name on the jade board, many people's faces were tinged with worry. In a remote corner, Jiang Yuqing looked expressionlessly and asked, "How long has it been? How long did he last?" "Eldest young master, 5 minutes." "It's useless," Jiang Yuqing said coldly. "Continue watching the others." "Yes." Digression. Chapter 504 and 505 were missed in Xiaoxiang. Book City is normal. I'll go and find an editor to deal with it. Everyone please be patient. Mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 508. It was a little difficult to move around with the glass barrier, so Chu Luiyue hesitated for a while before putting it away. She held the dagger in her right hand and the glass barrier in her left, feeling much more at ease. She had to admit that Rong Xiu's gifts were all good stuff. After walking for some distance, Chu Luiyue suddenly heard a commotion from afar. She looked up and saw 3 people walking over from another direction. The 2 men looked to be in their mid-20s, while the woman was younger and looked to be no more than 20 years old. Chu Luiyue vaguely remembered that these 3 people seemed to have entered before her. But it seemed that they didn't land in the same place as her. Thankfully, Martial Uncle prepared the simultaneous voice goo, so we could meet up at the fastest speed. Otherwise, the Tianling God realm is vast and boundless, and we would have already left before we could meet up. The skinny man in purple said with a joyful expression. That's right. I didn't think much of it before, but I didn't expect the Tianling God realm to be such an extraordinary place. The other man, who was much rounder and had a beard, nodded in agreement. The young woman standing between the 2 of them had an oval face. Her skin was fair and clean, and she looked delicate and pretty. Between her eyebrows, there was a hint of natural flirtatiousness. Thank you for your help just now, senior brothers. Otherwise, Qin would have been eliminated long ago. As she spoke, she wiped the sweat off her forehead. Her cheeks were slightly red and she looked even more lovely. The 2 men looked at her with eyes full of unconcealable adoration. Qin, what are you saying? After this Wanzheng competition, you will be a disciple of our Purple Shao Sword sect. As your senior brothers, it is our duty to help you. That's right. Master and Martial Uncles are all very optimistic about you. The woman smiled shyly. The Purple Shao Sword sect is a top sect in Xiling. How can it be so easy to enter? If Qin Er's ranking isn't good enough, I'm afraid I won't have the face to enter. Qin Er, you're being too humble. You are only 19 years old this year and you are already at the peak of the 5th stage. Among the participants in this Wanzheng competition, you are definitely one of the best. Besides, you're Yuan Meridian. The lanky man did not finish his words, but a look of envy flashed across his face. It was obvious that this girl's Yuan Meridian was even more outstanding than his. The bearded man also nodded and sighed. When you enter the Purple Shao Sword sect and officially start cultivating, it is very likely that you will surpass the 2 of us within 3 years. Senior brothers, please don't tease me. The woman hurriedly waved her hand. She appeared to be a bit shy, but the smile on her face became even more brilliant. Chu Luiyue noticed that even though the trio's faces were slightly red, their surrounding auras were normal. Upon closer inspection, she realized that each of them was wearing a perfume pouch on their waists. Most of the origin power of heaven and earth in the surroundings was actually being devoured. Chu Luiyue narrowed his eyes. Yuan devouring pouch. This thing looked no different from an ordinary perfume pouch, but it was actually woven from a special kind of Yuan devouring heavenly silk. It could automatically absorb the energy of heaven and earth and store it in large amounts. Only when the owner opened it would the origin power inside gush out. Some cultivators like to carry it around with them so that they could absorb the rich origin power of heaven and earth at any time and anywhere to speed up their cultivation. However, because of its high price, not everyone could afford it. But in all fairness, this was indeed a good way to deal with the current predicament. No wonder he was able to make it here without any incident. Chu Luiyue retracted his gaze and was about to continue walking forward when those people happened to see her. Isn't that Chu Luiyue? She actually came here too? To be able to defeat a stage 5 warrior, she indeed has some ability. To be able to last until now, the two men whispered. The woman's eyes turned. Senior brothers, why don't we invite her to come with us? The two men were taken aback and then their expressions became a little awkward. Qin, we don't know her. This isn't too good, right? The competition of the Wanzheng competition was still in progress. They were in a competitive relationship. How could they go together just because they wanted to? The woman didn't seem to expect such a reaction from the two and stammered. Qin just thinks that she's a little pitiful being alone. But if both senior brothers feel that it's inappropriate, then forget it. The two men exchanged glances. The thin and tall man sighed and smiled. Qin is indeed kind-hearted. Since you've already spoken, senior brother naturally has no reason to reject. As long as she doesn't cause any trouble, it's fine. The woman's eyes lit up as gratitude appeared on her face. Thank you, senior brother. The other bearded man shouted at Chu Luiyue. Miss Chu, please wait. Miss Chu, this place is dangerous. It's especially dangerous to be alone. Why don't you come with us? This way we can take care of each other. How about it? Actually, Chu Luiyue heard their conversation clearly. Compared to the two men, she was the most confused one. She had some impression of that woman. Her name was Yang Qin. During the preliminaries, she defeated another participant who was also at the peak of stage 5 in 3 moves, causing quite a stir. With such talent and strength at such a young age, she was already eye-catching. Moreover, she was also beautiful. However, she didn't know her and didn't know what she was planning to do. It was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Moreover, she was going to retrieve the divine beast skeleton under the Longyuan sword. It was even more inconvenient for her to be with them. Chu Luiyue shook her head and said politely, Thank you for your kind offer. Thank you for your kind intentions, but I have an appointment with a friend, so I won't trouble you guys. They were all shocked. They didn't expect Chu Luiyue to reject their suggestion. Was there something wrong with her brain? Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that she was much safer with them than alone. They were willing to help purely because of Qin's face. Who knew that she didn't appreciate their kindness? Although Chu Luiyue rejected them politely in the eyes of others, she didn't know what was good for her. The thin and tall man frowned slightly and said to young Qin, Qin, you see. Qin, you've seen it for yourself. She doesn't want to be with us. You've wasted your kindness. Yang Qin bit her lip. The bearded man snorted, stroked his beard and said meaningfully, She's doing this because she doesn't trust us. Since that's the case, why should we stick our warm faces to her cold butt? Since she's so confident, let her do it herself. Let's see how long she can last in this place. The Purple Shao Sword Sect had a very high status in West Ridge. They had always claimed to be the top sword sect, so most of their disciples were somewhat arrogant. Yang Qin was silent for a moment, but she still took a step forward and said gently to Chu Luiyue, Mississippi Chu, don't misunderstand. We're all good people. I just saw that there were many severed human bones here and felt that it was very dangerous. It's safer for us to be together, isn't it? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 509. Has she made up her mind to pester me? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly and glanced at Yang Qin. Her young and beautiful face was full of sincerity with a hint of uneasiness as if she was really worried about Chu Luiyue. However, they were not related to each other, so where did this sincerity and worry come from? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up, and her smile became even more sincere and polite. Thank you for your kind intentions, but I really can't go with you. I appreciate your kind intentions. Disappointment flashed across Yang Qin's face quickly. However, Chu Luiyue's attitude was so firm, and she knew that she wouldn't be able to persuade her. She could only force a smile. All right then. I hope everything goes well for Miss Chu. The tall, skinny man glanced at Chu Luiyue coldly with a face full of dissatisfaction. You don't know how to appreciate favors. He didn't lower his voice, so everyone present heard it clearly. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly and didn't take it to heart. She turned around and left. Hey you. The tall, skinny man immediately felt that he was being looked down upon. He pointed at Chu Luiyue and was about to continue reprimanding her, but Yang Qin stopped him. "Senior brother, since it's inconvenient for her, let's not force her," she said gently as she pressed down the tall, skinny man's hand. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had walked away without any burden, the bearded man finally couldn't help but grumble. Does she really think that she's so great just because she won a competition and can look down on everyone? The people from the Purple Shao Sword sect had always been the ones who tried to befriend them. When had they ever been rejected like this? Twice. Especially in front of Yang Qin. It was really embarrassing. Yang Qin smiled and hid the disappointment on her face. "Senior brother, let's go too. Didn't you guys say earlier that that sword is very likely to be the legendary Dragon Abyss sword?" Speaking of this, the two men's attention was immediately diverted, and they couldn't hide the excitement on their faces. That's right. To be able to remain in the Tianling God realm and have such an oppressive aura. Only the legendary Long Yuan sword can exist, said the lanky man. Uncle Master said that there would be opportunities here, but I didn't expect. This is the sword used by Taizu back then. The bearded man raised his head to look at the gigantic black sword that stood between the heavens and the earth. His eyes were filled with envy and admiration. Our Purple Shao Sword sect specializes in sword techniques, and we have countless good swords in our sect. Especially Master. He has a green tomb sword that is extremely powerful. However, it is still much inferior when compared to this Long Yuan sword. Actually, it wasn't that there was a huge difference, but that they weren't even on the same level. A divine item like the Long Yuan sword was a one-of-a-kind treasure in the world. To be able to see it with his own eyes, this trip was truly worth it. Yang Qin's eyes flickered. Qin has heard some rumors about the Long Yuan sword. However, there was one thing that he didn't understand. Taizu had already passed away, so this Long Yuan sword had become an ownerless item. Why was it that after so many years, no one from the Tianling royal family took it out? Wouldn't it be a waste to just leave it here? The moment she said that, the two men burst out laughing. "Qin, you only know one thing and don't know the other. This Long Yuan sword is a divine artifact and it already has a sword soul. Even if Taizu is no longer around, it won't casually recognize an owner. So that's how it is." Yang Qin paused for a moment. "This Long Yuan sword is extremely heavy. Rumor has it that when Taizu had just forged it, he purposely threw it to the accompanying troops. 1,000 soldiers moved out at the same time, but they still couldn't lift it. You have to know that the soldiers who could follow Taizu weren't ordinary people. This shows how powerful this Long Yuan sword is." As the skinny man spoke, he shook his head and sighed. Yang Qin looked at the Long Yuan sword and muttered, "I wonder who will be able to keep this Long Yuan sword in the future. Haha. The Tianling royal family has Taizu blood in them, but they still haven't succeeded in thousands of years, let alone others? Qin, let's not think about this." The treasure-gathering toad indicated that there are treasures around the Long Yuan sword. "Let's hurry over." Yang Qin smiled and nodded. Okay. Chu Luiyue walked forward alone. Although Yang Qin and the rest were quite far away from her, it was obvious that their destination was also the Long Yuan sword. She just didn't know if they were here for the Divine Beast skeleton. "Can you find out what Divine Beast skeleton is now?" Chu Luiyue asked in her heart. "Not yet. The Long Yuan sword has completely suppressed it, leaving no leeway." The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice became much more serious. "But I sense the aura of a heavenly Tao." Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. Heavenly Tao? Could it be the heavenly Tao that Taizu summoned back then? Not exactly. The aura of the heavenly Tao is very weak. There should be a portion that has scattered elsewhere. Chu Luiyue nodded. This was the same as what was said in the secret scroll. It was quite strange. In the eyes of ordinary people, the heavenly Tao was unreachable, but she already had two in her body. One came from the God-stunning art, and the other came from the contract with the legendary three-eyed eagle. But this power didn't have any effect in her body. It didn't have any sense of existence. On the other side, Yang Qin and the rest had just walked to a certain place. A sword aura suddenly appeared. "I'll do it." The lanky man shouted and stabbed the sword in his hand. He actually planned to fight the black sword aura head-on. Ding. The two sword auras collided. There was a crisp sound. The black sword aura suddenly stopped. A smug smile appeared on the lanky man's face. But the next moment, the smile froze on his face. Because the power contained in the black sword aura was far beyond his imagination. Buzz. The black sword aura pressed against the tip of his sword, causing the sword in his hand to vibrate violently. Soon even his arms started to tremble. Poof! His palm immediately ruptured and blood flowed out. This was just the sword aura from the Long Yuan sword, but it actually contained such a shocking and sharp sword intent. The all-encompassing sharp aura was like an invisible net, enveloping the tall and skinny man within. Crack! A crack actually appeared on his sword. Retreat! He was greatly shocked and immediately retreated with a roar. Yang Qin hurriedly retreated. The bearded man rushed forward with his sword. A broadsword directly slashed towards the sword aura. But in the next moment, his broadsword was directly repelled. Even he took a few steps back. He spat out blood. In the blink of an eye, both men were injured. The lanky man's sword directly shattered. Boom! The few of them narrowly avoided it, and the black sword aura was finally nailed to an empty space. A deep crater was blasted into the cracked ground by that terrifying force. The three of them were still in shock and their faces were filled with fear. A sword aura was actually so terrifying. Look, Chu Liwei actually blocked that sword aura. Yang Qin suddenly looked up and exclaimed. The two men turned their heads and indeed saw a black sword aura dissipating not far from Chu Liwei. Silver flowing light slowly flowed in front of her. That's the colored glass realm? How is that possible? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 510. That round silver transparent barrier did indeed look like a glazed barrier. But how could it block this terrifying sword aura? It was not that they had never seen a crystal barrier before, but it was impossible for that thing to have such defensive power. After all, the two of them had to join forces to barely block that sword aura. The three of them looked at each other. Other than Yang Qin, who was slightly better off, the other two were in a sorry state. The bearded man was injured, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. As for the skinny man, his sword was completely destroyed. As disciples of the Purple Shao sword sect, they were best at using swords. Now that their swords were gone, it was undoubtedly a huge blow to them. What should we do? The skinny man retracted his gaze and looked at his right hand in a daze. This was a top-notch sword, but now there was only a broken sword hilt left. It looked extremely pathetic. One sword aura had forced them to such a state. If they continued to move forward, no wonder there are these human bones. Yang Qin looked worried. It seems that they were all injured by the sword aura. The few of them fell silent. His previous lofty aspirations had already vanished into thin air. Reality was always the cruelest. There is definitely more than one sword aura. This is the base of the Long Yuan sword. This sword aura is its warning. The bearded man looked up at the Long Yuan sword. The excitement and anticipation from before were all gone. Only anxiety and uneasiness were left on his face, as well as deep fear. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it is. We might even lose our lives. Needless to say, everyone understood. Boom. There was an explosion. The sword aura in front of Chu Liwei had dissipated. Then why is Chu Liwei safe and sound? Yang Qin seemed to be talking to herself as she asked. I have used a crystal barrier before, but it seems hers is different. The two men looked at each other. Actually, they could see it too. How could an ordinary crystal barrier be so powerful? There was obviously something strange about her. Yang Qin took out gauze and carefully bandaged the skinny man's hand. Her eyes were red. Senior brother was injured because of me. If only I could be as powerful as Chu Liwei. Her words instantly reminded the two men. How is she powerful? It's her crystal barrier that's powerful. The bearded man was a little disdainful and resentful. No wonder she refused to go with us. It's because of this. Didn't they say that Chu Liwei came from an ordinary background? How can there be such a powerful Yuan instrument? The skinny man stared at Chu Liwei anxiously. When he saw her putting away the crystal barrier, his expression changed slightly. Does she have a powerful background? Yang Qin thought. I think it's related to young Master Jian from Dragon Teeth Mountain. Jian Fengqi. When the two men mentioned this name, they were both filled with disdain and jealousy. There's nothing impressive about Jian Fengqi. He's just relying on his good background. The skinny man said and gave the bearded man a look. Since we're here, how can we go back like this? The bearded man nodded slightly. We have to think of a way. Chu Liwei put away the item. She had just taken 2 steps when she felt a movement from the side. She abruptly turned her head and saw the three of them heading towards her. Compared to the beginning, they looked much worse for wear now. It was obvious that they were at a disadvantage just now. Miss Chu, we have something to discuss with you. Yang Qin said softly. She looked a little nervous, as if she would be frightened if she spoke louder. Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. She lifted her chin. Yang Qin clasped her hands together and asked nervously. We saw that you blocked the sword qi just now, so we want to ask if you can help us? Chu Luiyue had already guessed their intentions in her heart, but she still asked them. Help you with what? Yang Qin paused. Just, can you bring us along? Don't worry, we won't let you help us for nothing. As long as you can lead us to avoid these sword qis, we'll definitely repay you well. If we find any treasures, you can pick first. After we get out, we'll also reward you handsomely. What do you think? How about this? The tall and thin man next to him added, That's right. The people of the Purple Shao Sword sect always keep their promises. Chu Luiyue almost laughed out loud. How shameless. She asked that question on purpose to see how shameless these people were. She didn't expect them to really say that. They were clearly asking for help, but their attitude was so high that it was as if they were giving alms. She was still smiling, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. I think I've made it very clear just now. It's not convenient for me to travel with you. So, forget it. The few of them were dumbfounded. They didn't expect that Chu Luiyue would refuse to help after taking the initiative to offer such a condition. Moreover, they even mentioned the Purple Shao Sword sect. She didn't take them seriously at all. The bearded man's expression turned ugly. Miss Chu, are you sure? We offered to help you just now. Isn't it inappropriate for you to do this now? Chu Luiyue asked. But I didn't ask you to help me just now. Also, I didn't accept your help. It's not like I owe you anything, right? The bearded man suddenly sneered. The people brought by Jian Fengqi are indeed as selfish as him. If you really refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then don't blame us for being rude. The smile on Chu Luiyue's face gradually faded, as if a layer of frost had condensed. There was a faint coldness in her eyes, but it was bone-chilling. Are you serious? Digression, insomnia bird yesterday. My period was tormenting me to death. I'm going to have breakfast and come back to continue the update. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 511. It was fine if he scolded Jian Fengqi, but she couldn't tolerate it if he scolded her as well. The bearded man was shocked by Chu Luiyue's expression and felt uneasy. However, on second thought, any one of the three of them could easily defeat Chu Luiyue, let alone working together. Chu Luiyue was simply courting death if she went against the three of them alone. Moreover, Jian Fengqi wasn't here now, so they had nothing to be afraid of. Yang Qin didn't seem to give up. Miss Chu, we don't mean any harm. We really just want to ask for your help. Both of our senior brothers are injured. What does their injuries have to do with me? Chu Luiyue interrupted Yang Qin impatiently. If I remember correctly, when the two of them went forward to resist the sword aura, you dodged it. Yang Qin's expression changed slightly. She didn't expect Chu Luiyue to see that. You're their junior sister. If you don't help, why should I? Do I look that stupid? Chu Luiyue said word by word. She spoke slowly and calmly, but to the three of them, it was extremely ear-piercing. Yang Qin's face flushed red, and her eyes were filled with tears. Her appearance immediately caused the two men to have tender feelings for her. The lanky man frowned and shouted at Chu Luiyue, What do you know? The situation was critical at that time. We asked her to retreat, so she retreated. Otherwise, the three of us would be injured now. Chu Luiyue, don't sow discord here. Yang Qin quickly pulled him back. Senior brothers, it's all my fault. Don't be angry, Chu Luiyue shrugged. If there were people who didn't want their brains or their lives, why should she waste her breath? It's up to you to say whatever you want. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. With that, Chu Luiyue lifted her feet and was about to walk around them. The bearded man's face was gloomy as he stood in front of her. Who said that you can leave? Chu Luiyue looked up at the arrogant and gloomy man in front of her and smiled. This casual and contemptuous smile immediately angered the bearded man. He raised the broadsword in his hand and stabbed it at Chu Luiyue. Today I'll let you know that there are some people you can never offend. As he said that, his wrist turned his wrist, the sword was actually stabbed at Chu Luiyue's left hand. He's his attack. Chu Luiyue's gaze turned increasingly cold as she suddenly threw the dagger in her right hand out. With a crisp sound, the broadsword was easily knocked askew by the dagger. The bearded man hissed. How dare you? He Although he didn't have a sword and his combat power was greatly reduced, it was more than enough for him to deal with a rank 3 warrior with his early stage rank 6 strength. He shouted as his palm turned into a fist and punched towards Chu Liyue's back. The fist was strong. Chu Liyue took the chance and rushed forward. Her footsteps staggered and she crashed into the bearded man's chest. Before he could react, she grabbed his arm and turned him around forcefully. This time, the bearded man became Chu Liyue's shield. The skinny man saw the situation and hurriedly wanted to withdraw his attack. But his fist was already out. Forcefully withdrawing it would cause a huge backlash. The bearded man had no choice but to take the punch. His right hand, which was holding the sword, was completely numb. He could only use his left hand to deal with Chu Liyue and choked her neck. Just at this moment, Chu Liyue's elbow struck backwards. A heavy blow landed on the bearded man's ribs. The bearded man bent over in pain. He was so angry that he wished he could kill Chu Liyue. But Chu Liyue was faster than him. Her hand almost chopped off the bearded man's right wrist. The broadsword in his hand immediately fell. Yang Qin knew something was wrong and wanted to rush forward. Chu Liyue took the chance to break free from the bearded man's control. She turned around and gave a flying kick. She kicked the bearded man directly onto the skinny man. The two of them collided. Chu Liyue tiptoed and the broadsword was already in her hands. Yang Qin wanted to stop, but Chu Liyue glanced at her with a half-smile, which made her feel guilty. She pulled out a sword from her waist and gritted her teeth as she rushed towards Chu Liyue. But Chu Liyue did not want to waste time on her and attacked first. The broadsword was very heavy, but Chu Liyue held it in her hands as if it was weightless. After being tempered by the water droplets a few times, her physical strength had far exceeded her expectations. The next moment she went forward and knocked Yang Qin's sword away before she could circulate her force. Yang Qin cried out in pain as a wound appeared on her arm. Chu Liyue did not continue fighting. She immediately retreated after her attack. The force in her body surged rapidly. Chu Liyue was surprised to find that her speed seemed to have increased a little, because the surrounding force of heaven and earth kept flowing into her body and cleansing it. She rushed towards the Long Yuan sword in a spurt of energy. Yang Qin wanted to chase after her, but when she saw the huge Long Yuan sword and felt the deep and majestic aura, she felt a little guilty. She turned around and rushed to the side of the two people. Senior brother Qin is useless. I couldn't catch up to her. She intentionally showed the wound on her arm to the two people. The two people did not suspect anything and hated Chu Liyue even more. This Chu Liyue is really cunning. If we weren't injured by the sword chi just now, she definitely wouldn't have escaped. The bearded man spat out a mouthful of blood and said hatefully. The skinny and tall man blamed himself and felt guilty for accidentally injuring his fellow disciple. He also pushed all the blame to Chu Liyue. When we meet her again, we definitely won't let her have an easy time. Yang Qin looked down, and a look of disdain flashed across her eyes. She had her concerns and did not use her full strength. However, these two people were not weak and yet they were so useless. Although the disciples of such a big sect were outstanding, their combat power might not be good. It was fine if they had a competition, but now that they met a ruthless person like Chu Liyue, who had been through life and death situations, they immediately fell into a disadvantage. She coughed and reminded them gently. Senior brother, now that she has left, are we still chasing after her? The two men instantly fell silent. If it were before, they would definitely say yes. But now, seeing the Long Yuan sword again, they were a little scared. After a while, the bearded man said, we are all injured. All of us are injured. Why don't we treat our wounds here first and rest until we're in our best condition before heading inside? The skinny and tall man had no objections and immediately agreed. Although Yang Qin was unwilling, she could not refuse and could only follow. On the other side, Chu Liyue had the help of the crystal barrier and could be considered to be unobstructed. She was getting closer and closer to the Long Yuan sword. When she got closer, she finally saw that the Long Yuan sword was surrounded by a huge crater. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A heavy, desolate, and solemn pressure enveloped him. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 5:12. The sinkhole was filled with gullies and countless black sword chi collided back and forth. The cold and hard ground and stones were full of sword marks. Standing on top and looking down, it was a shocking sight. Chu Liyue sucked in a cold breath. The Long Yuan sword had been here for thousands of years. Perhaps this sinkhole was caused by the accumulation of its sword chi. Just standing on the side, one could feel the overwhelming sword intent. The most important thing was that Chu Luiyue only realized that the gigantic Long Yuan sword on the ground was only a small part of its original body when she arrived at this place. Adding the part exposed in this sinkhole, it seemed to be less than half of the entire Long Yuan sword. It was majestic and magnificent, unparalleled and unparalleled. Thousands of years of wind and rain didn't leave a single mark on the black sword. Looking at it closely, it was still as smooth and sharp as if it had just been sharpened. And that pressure was coming from above. Chu Luiyue looked over and carefully looked at this legendary divine sword. This was the sword that opened up the entire Tianling dynasty, Taizu's sword. Her heart suddenly surged with complicated emotions. Admiration, respect, lamentation. Although she was standing here with another person's identity, she knew very well that this was her ancestor. As long as she thought of this, the blood in her body seemed to flow faster, and her heart beat wildly. The divine beast skeleton is under the Long Yuan sword. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Luiyue immediately woke up and looked down again. In the sinkhole, there was nothing else except for the Long Yuan sword that was half buried in the ground. Chu Luiyue frowned and asked, "You said it's under the Long Yuan sword? It can't be under the ground, right?" The legendary three-eyed eagle asked, "Did you only know now?" Chu Luiyue. "Then how do I get it? Not to mention that I can't go down underground, I can't even go down in this sinkhole with sword chi." She meant what she said. With those streaks of black sword chi, she would be turned into a sieve the moment she went down. Even if she had the colored glass barrier, she couldn't guarantee that she could withstand the attacks of over 1,000 sword chis at the same time. The legendary three-eyed eagle said, "I will protect you." Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched violently. "So, you can clearly deal with these sword energies, but you've been watching from the sidelines? After forming a contract with me, didn't you say that your mental state improved too quickly, and your foundation wasn't solid enough, so you wanted to find an opportunity to practice?" The legendary three-eyed eagle said confidently. "This opportunity is quite rare. Wasn't that right?" Chu Luiyue, she held her aching forehead. Why had no one ever told her that mythical beasts could also be crazy? The legendary three-eyed eagle asked again, "Why? Don't you like it?" Chu Luiyue gritted his teeth. "I like it. I love it so much." Only then was the legendary three-eyed eagle satisfied. "Get ready." Chu Luiyue immediately put away his emotions and became alert. Since she had promised the legendary three-eyed eagle to help it recover its physical body, then this trip, she had to go. In the next moment, a black phantom appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. He hugged his wings and closed his eyes tightly. The pressure was overwhelming. It was the legendary three-eyed eagle. Wow! Huge wings spread out. Chu Luiyue felt as if the sky in front of him had darkened for a moment. She stared at the illusion in front of her. Obviously, compared to the previous few times, the illusion this time was much more solid. She could even see every single feather on it. She sensed a familiar aura from the phantom. "This is the power of the heavenly Tao?" Chu Luiyue murmured. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened its eyes. Those eyes were still scarlet red, but the bloody and fierce aura that filled them had almost completely dissipated. Moreover, it faintly emitted a supreme and noble aura. Chu Luiyue knew that this was the aura that truly belonged to the legendary three-eyed eagle. That's right. The legendary three-eyed eagle and Chu Luiyue were telepathically connected. They did not need to speak to understand each other's thoughts. "After forming a contract with you, my soul has been nourished by the heavenly Tao and has recovered a lot." Chu Luiyue clicked her tongue in amazement. In that case, forming a contract between a divine beast and a human is not completely without benefits. The legendary three-eyed eagle looked at her and hesitated. At this time, Chu Luiyue still did not know that not everyone could form a contract with a divine beast. Many of them could not withstand the pressure of the divine beast and the heavenly Tao and died directly. And even if the contract was successful, the heavenly Tao would appear, and after the contract was completed, it would dissipate, leaving behind a tiny bit of power that was not worth mentioning. For Chu Luiyue to form a contract with a divine beast, summon the heavenly Tao and absorb it into her body, he was the only one. At least in the legendary three-eyed eagle's bloodline memory, such a thing had never happened before. However, it did not intend to tell Chu Luiyue about this for the time being. "Come up." The legendary three-eyed eagle lowered its wings. Chu Luiyue jumped up. "My phantom is mainly formed by the soul and is formed by the force of heaven and earth. It can only last for a limited time. Remember to hold on tight." Chu Luiyue nodded with a grave expression. the legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings and swooped down. Just as Chu Luiyue rushed into the crater, Yang Qin'er and the others on the other side had finally finished resting and were ready to set off again. The lanky man said in a deep voice, "If we meet Chu Luiyue again, we must not give her any chance to escape." However, just as they walked for a distance, a woman's voice came from behind them. "May I ask if you are disciples of the Purple Shao Sword sect?" They turned around and saw a young woman. "You are?" The woman smiled and said, "I am Ning Jiaojiao of the Profound Wind Hall." The few of them looked at each other. The Profound Wind Hall and the Purple Shao Sword sect had always minded their own business. As for this Ning Jiaojiao, she seemed to be the young mistress of the Profound Wind Hall? So it's Miss Ning. Ning Jiaojiao saw that they were on guard and didn't mind. She asked tentatively, "Just now I think I heard the three of you talking about Chu Luiyue?" Yang Qin'er's eyes flickered and she immediately said, "Miss Ning, you heard wrongly." Ning Jiaojiao's gaze swept across the few of them and smiled meaningfully. "So I misunderstood. I thought that the injuries on your bodies were caused by Chu Luiyue. However, if it was really her, you should have been chased out of the Tianling God realm by now." Yang Qin'er and the others looked at each other. "What do you mean, Miss Ning?" Ning Jiaojiao was stunned and covered her mouth, as if she felt that she had said too much. Nothing, but after hesitating for a moment she still made up her mind and said, Actually it's not a big deal. It's just that Chu Luiyue. For some reason she has been killing the other contestants. Along the way she has already forced a few people out of the Tianling God realm. I'm a little scared." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 513. I bumped into her by accident. Fortunately she didn't discover me. But if I meet her again I might not be so lucky. Ning Jiaojiao said softly. The two men's expressions changed slightly, but Yang Qin'er suddenly said, "Miss Ning shouldn't be weak. Why would you be afraid of Chu Luiyue?" Ning Jiaojiao paused for a moment and said meaningfully, "Chu Luiyue is much stronger than what she looks like on the surface. Wasn't it already clear during the preliminaries? Jian Fengqi is so arrogant. How could he choose someone who can't do anything to participate in the Wanzheng competition?" Yang Qin'er and the other two looked at each other and fell into a strange silence. They were well aware of this point. "Just now, to be honest, Miss Ning, we did meet Chu Luiyue just now and exchanged blows with her. But she's very cunning and has already escaped to the Long Yuan sword." The bearded man spoke, but his words were very subtle. Yang Qin'er laughed in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. Ning Jiaojiao was shocked. "Really? She is alone?" She did hear Chu Luiyue's name just now, so she purposely probed. But from the looks of it, Chu Luiyue fought against three alone and successfully escaped. The two men were a little embarrassed. The lanky man immediately said, "After we were injured by the Long Yuan sword aura, she took advantage of the situation. Also, there's something strange about her. The Long Yuan sword aura is very terrifying, but she easily resolved it. I don't know why." No one mentioned Chu Luiyue's unusual crystal barrier. Ning Jiaojiao really had some doubts about Chu Luiyue now. She said the purpose of this trip. "In that case, why don't we join forces first?" On the other side, the legendary three-eyed eagle was rushing to the bottom of the crater with Chu Luiyue. The moment they entered, the surrounding sword aura surged crazily. The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings, and Chu Luiyue immediately sensed that the surrounding space was rapidly freezing. When the black sword chi reached this space, they simultaneously slowed down and even stopped completely. This was the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine domain. Realization dawned on Chu Luiyue. So this is its trump card. Within this space, it had absolute control over everything. It was true that the Long Yuan sword was a divine item, but the legendary three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast. According to the power of these sword chis, wanting to break through the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine domain, they were still lacking by a bit. Just like that, the man and the beast passed through the layers of sword chi and rushed down into the depths below. The further down he went, the more sword chi there were, and the fiercer it was. However, the legendary three-eyed eagle's speed did not decrease. Chu Luiyue leaned over its back and stared at the ground below. When she got closer, she suddenly realized that there was a golden flame flashing past the place where the Long Yuan sword was buried. Chu Luiyue's heart stirred. When he wanted to take a closer look, he found that the flame had already disappeared. She frowned slightly. Could it be that she saw wrongly just now? However, the legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly opened its mouth in shock. How is this possible? It had always been cold and indifferent, and rarely used such a tone to speak. Could be seen that it was shocked. "What's wrong?" Chu Liwei quickly asked. The legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings and said, "Did you see that there was a cluster of golden flames below the Long Yuan sword?" Chu Liwei nodded. "You saw it too? I thought that I was hallucinating." "That's not a hallucination," the legendary three-eyed eagle said firmly. "That's the flame on the divine beast's corpse." Chu Liwei opened her eyes slightly. "The flame on the divine beast's corpse? What does that mean? This flame belongs to that divine beast?" She did not know much about divine beasts and she did not know anything about flames. However, that golden flame did not look simple. "Is the divine beast under the Long Yuan sword very powerful?" Chu Liwei asked. The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a long time before it said word by word, "There is only one race in the world that has such a golden flame, the ancient divine beast, the great phoenix dragon." Chu Liwei's heart instantly stirred up huge waves. "What? You're saying that the divine beast's corpse of swordsman Long Yuan is actually— How is this possible? That's an ancient divine beast." Chu Liwei was in disbelief. One had to know that ancient divine beasts were more ancient and powerful than ordinary divine beasts. That was a supreme being that only existed in distant legends. How could it appear here? However, as a divine beast, the legendary three-eyed eagle knew more about these things than she did. She held her breath and recalled the cluster of golden flames she saw just now. She actually became nervous. "Are you sure? That's really the corpse of the great phoenix dragon?" The legendary three-eyed eagle was obviously shocked as well, and said in a deep voice, "The only clue we have is that golden flame. We can't be completely sure yet, but it should be close." This meant that it had already confirmed it and it just lacked the last bit of evidence. Chu Liwei did not say anything for a long time. Her emotions were surging in her heart. She stared at the Long Yuan sword. Looking at it again, it felt a little different from before. Taizu failed to break through the 9th stage back then and did not step into the legendary higher realm. According to his strength at that time, it was not enough to kill an ancient divine beast like the great phoenix dragon. She could not help but mutter. The totem of the Tianling dynasty was indeed a sword that cut off the dragon's head. She had never thought that the dragon's head could be the great phoenix dragon. The legendary three-eyed eagle said firmly, "We'll know when we see it." Chu Liwei took a deep breath. Okay. At this point it was impossible to retreat. The only choice was to find out. Whoosh, the legendary three-eyed eagle flapped its wings, and the energy of the divine territory instantly shattered the surrounding sword energy. Its figure flashed, and it quickly headed toward the place where the golden flame had appeared. Gradually, Chu Liwei felt a scorching wave of air surging from the bottom of the sinkhole. Chu Liwei's hand suddenly tightened. A bold conjecture surfaced in her mind. The strange climate of this world was most likely related to this. The air wave contained rich heaven and earth origin power. Even in the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine territory, Chu Liwei could still clearly feel that the pressure was gradually increasing. Whoosh, suddenly a faint sound could be heard. Chu Liwei looked sideways and saw that the divine territory was crazily squeezed by the surrounding power, and a hole burst open. The legendary three-eyed eagle's body swayed for a moment, and then it began to fly down at an even faster speed. However, Chu Liwei's heart was in her mouth as she stared at the opening with a deadly gaze. Boom! There was an explosion and the divine territory collapsed. Chu Liwei and the legendary three-eyed eagle were immediately exposed outside the divine territory. She could clearly see that the legendary three-eyed eagle's body had become much more illusory. The turbulent air wave wrapped in countless black sword energy crazily arrived. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 5:14. However, right at this moment, the black pyramid in Chu Liwei's body suddenly emitted a powerful fluctuation. Those sword auras instantly stopped in front of Chu Liwei, and those surging waves of scorching air quickly retreated as if they had encountered something terrifying. In just the blink of an eye, they all disappeared completely. Looking at the countless black sword auras that were right in front of her, as if they would pierce through her body in the next second, Chu Liwei was also stunned. She didn't even have the time to throw out the glass barrier in her hand. But now, it seemed like she didn't need it. Right at this moment, on the Long Yuan sword, a silver lightning suddenly struck down from the top of the sword hilt. The originally deep and majestic Long Yuan sword seemed to have undergone some kind of refinement and became much brighter and sharper. Previously there was also lightning swimming on the Long Yuan sword, but Chu Luiyue felt that something seemed to be different this time. As expected, when the silver lightning followed the sword and entered the crater, the second one actually followed closely behind. Moreover, this one was much thicker than the previous one. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Thunder rumbled. Chu Luiyue stared at the Long Yuan sword closely, and gradually, a subtle sense of familiarity actually arose. This feeling came from the Long Yuan sword and the black pyramid in her body. Boom. A loud sound came from afar. Ning Jiaojiao and the rest looked up and saw a dazzling silver light flashing on the Long Yuan sword. The Long Yuan sword is about to awaken? The lanky man suddenly exclaimed in shock. As his voice fell, the others also widened their eyes, and their faces were filled with shock. Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but ask, What do you mean by that? She didn't cultivate the way of the sword, so she didn't quite understand what it meant. Because of his agitation, the lanky man's face flushed red. He explained with a trembling voice, the Long Yuan sword is a divine weapon and it has a sword soul. When its owner dies, it will also fall into a deep sleep. Most divine weapons will completely fall silent and be sealed forever. But, if it chooses to awaken, it means... Ning Jiaojiao asked, what does it mean? It means, it's about to choose a new owner. The thin and tall man said these words with a heart full of excitement. The blood in his body seemed to be boiling. The bearded man beside him had the same reaction. In comparison, Yang Qiner's expression was still calm, but there was a deep desire in her eyes as she looked at the Long Yuan sword. The Purple Shao sword sect had always specialized in sword arts. Now, not only could they see the Dragon Abyss sword with their own eyes, they could even witness its awakening. How could they not be excited? The most important thing was that the Long Yuan sword was about to choose a new master. Such a great opportunity might be theirs. Ning Jiaojiao finally understood. She lowered her eyes and pondered for a moment. All right. Is Chu Luiyue near the Long Yuan sword? These words immediately reminded the others, causing them to wake up from their fanatical excitement, and their expressions changed. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Ning Jiaojiao said hesitantly as her eyes flickered. For a divine artifact like the Dragon Abyss sword, it's a matter of luck for those who can obtain it, and not a matter of who is close to it. Even though the bearded man said that, he was still panicking. Who knew why the Long Yuan sword suddenly awakened? No matter what, Chu Luiyue was closer and it was more convenient for him than them. They didn't even know what was going on over there. Ning Jiaojiao's gaze swept across the few of them. She sneered in her heart, but her expression was sincere. In my opinion, the Long Yuan sword has been asleep for 1,000 years. According to its awakening, it will definitely choose a 1-in-a-million genius to be its new master. Not to mention other things, at least in terms of swordsmanship, he should have a good cultivation. My Shenfeng Hall is inferior to him in this aspect. However, the few of you are disciples of the Purple Shao sword sect, and you are most familiar with swords. Isn't that so? Her words made the two men waver. Not to mention Chu Luiyue, even if you look at all the participants in this Wanzheng competition, you won't be able to find anyone more suitable than the few of you to be the new master of the Long Yuan sword. However, if such a great opportunity is snatched away by someone else, if it were me, I would definitely regret it for the rest of my life. So, I wonder if my suggestion just now. We agree to it. The skinny and tall man made the final decision. The remaining Yang Qiner and the other man also nodded in agreement. Ning Jiaojiao's lips curved. Even if she hadn't said such provocative words, the few of them would have made the same choice. Because that was what they thought in their hearts. Her words had only spoken to the bottom of their hearts and acted as an assist. Ning Jiaojiao suggested. Let's work together to deal with Chu Luiyue first. We'll share whatever treasures we find. As for the Long Yuan sword, the one with the greatest opportunity will get it. It's a deal. Yang Qin looked back and suddenly exclaimed. Look, those black sword auras seem to have returned to the Long Yuan sword. The few of them raised their eyes and looked over. Sure enough, they saw several streaks of black sword qi that came from nowhere surging into the Long Yuan sword. At the same time, streaks of silver lightning struck down continuously. Let's go. Ning Jiaojiao was the first to react and immediately rushed forward. The others didn't want to be outdone and quickly followed. The 9th bolt of silver lightning struck the sword. In an instant the sword hummed. It was as if a huge beast that had been sleeping for a long time had suddenly awakened. It was also as if a hole had been torn open in the endless darkness, and the sky suddenly lit up. One could vaguely see the vast and mighty existence from within. Chu Luiyue opened his eyes and stared at the long yuan sword in front of him without blinking. The long yuan sword had actually awakened on its own. The surrounding black sword aura started to return to the long yuan sword continuously. Chi-chi. The sound of something breaking through the air rang in his ears. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly exclaimed. Chu Luiyue followed its line of sight and looked over, and his pupils constricted. A golden flame suddenly emerged from the ground. It still appeared at the position where the long yuan sword had sunk into the ground, but it was much more intense than the first time. Moreover, not only did it not disappear, it started to spread in all directions. In a short time, the huge crater's bottom was completely filled with golden flames. From above, it looked as if the long yuan sword had pierced into a ball of golden flames. The divine beast's corpse is below. We have to hurry. The power of the heavenly Tao can't support us for too long. The legendary three-eyed eagle shouted in a deep voice. Chu Luiyue's brows knitted tightly. You mean, we have to barge into this golden flame? The legendary three-eyed eagle replied affirmatively. The long yuan sword has already awakened, and this is its only opening. Once it recognizes another master, the divine beast's corpse will either be taken over or completely destroyed. Chu Luiyue nodded, and a red flame instantly spread out from her body and covered her entire body. Let's go. The legendary three-eyed eagle suddenly swooped down. The figures of a human and a beast instantly disappeared in the flames. Boom. The flames soared into the sky. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Do you think the interspatial ring on your hand can withstand the pressure of this corpse? Chu Luiyue finally understood what it meant. She patted her forehead lightly. Hiss, how could he have forgotten about this? What do you say? Is it just like this? It was not easy for us to come in. It was because the three-eyed eagle asked that she rushed in. If she was told that she could only look and not take it. Heavenly Square Cauldron. The three-eyed eagle said in a low voice. Put the corpse in the heavenly square cauldron. On one hand you can take it away. On the other hand you can also extract the remaining power of the great phoenix dragon's bloodline. Chu Luiyue nodded. With a thought, the heavenly square cauldron appeared in her palm. A transparent karmic fire burned quietly in it. Chu Luiyue moved her wrist slightly, and the heavenly square cauldron flew into the air and expanded rapidly. A transparent flame spread out from within and swept towards the half of the corpse on the ground. However, just as the transparent karmic fire touched the corpse, a bright light suddenly flashed. Chu Luiyue instinctively covered her eyes. After a moment she suddenly realized something and looked over. Above the corpse, there was a huge Shen formation flashing with flowing light. It blocked the transparent karmic fire outside. When she saw the Shen formation clearly, Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched violently. This was a level 9 Shen formation. After she reached level 8 Shen master in her previous life, she had been stuck at this level and could not move forward. If it was a slightly lower level she might try to break it, but this one was a dead end. There is a seal on this half of the corpse. It seems that we have to break it. The three-eyed eagle's words made Chu Luiyue feel even more despair. She held her forehead as she felt a headache coming on. She looked at the profound formation that was quietly rotating in front of her and asked in an extremely empty voice, "Do you think I have the strength?" Just now it said that the great phoenix dragon could kill her with a glance. The three-eyed eagle glanced at her. Of course you don't. But the heavenly Tao can. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What do you mean? The three-eyed eagle suddenly fell silent and did not speak for a long time. Just when Chu Luiyue thought that it would not speak, it finally said, a level 9 Shen formation is actually not much different from a level 8 Shen formation. The only difference is that a level 9 Shen formation contains a wisp of heavenly Tao power. As long as you can break it, you can easily break it. Chu Luiyue opened her mouth. How? How do you know? The three-eyed eagle seemed to be gritting its teeth. Back then I was suppressed by a level 9 Shen formation. How can I not know? Chu Luiyue immediately understood. So, the person who suppressed you back then was also a Shen master? And? A level 9 one? Chapter 517. That water droplet floated quietly in front of the huge Shen formation, appearing extremely small. However, both sides were in a stalemate. Chu Luiyue knew that this was actually a battle between two heavenly laws. If she wanted to win, she had to ensure that she would win in one strike. Her gaze was fixed on the countless streams of light that were intertwined. The legendary three-eyed eagle stood at the side silently. The entire space was eerily quiet. Boom. Another Tianlei slashed down. Light splashed everywhere, making it hard to look at. Retreat again. The people waiting outside the crater were affected by the energy and retreated again. However, most of them were injured to varying degrees. This is already the 27th Tianlei of the Long Yuan sword, and it's already so powerful. If we really wait for the 81 Tianlei to appear again, I'm afraid none of us will be able to withstand it. By then, we will all be chased out of the Tianling God realm. A burly man said in a low voice. The black sword aura in the crater was still pouring back into the Long Yuan sword. As far as the eye could see, it had already become a golden sea of fire. Not necessarily. The new master chosen by the Long Yuan sword won't be threatened by these powers. Another man beside him spat out a mouthful of blood and gritted his teeth. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent for a moment. Wasn't this the reason why they insisted on waiting here? Yang Qin'er's eyes flashed and she asked softly, "Senior brothers, your injuries are quite serious. Why don't we wait?" The two men rejected her in unison. "No. We won't give up until the last moment. The Long Yuan sword will try to choose a new master every 9 Tianlei. Now, it seems that no one has been chosen in the first 3 rounds. There's still a chance." "That's right. If we run away because of fear, we will really be looked down upon. Qin, don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you." Yang Qin smiled gratefully. Ning Jiaojiao looked on coldly, and a hint of sarcasm flashed across her eyes. During this period of time, every time they encountered danger, the two men would rush to the front, afraid that something would happen to Yang Qin. Until now, the two of them were covered in injuries, but Yang Qin was still unharmed. This Yang Qin had some tricks up her sleeve. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the two of them to be so dead set on risking their lives for her. At the end of the day, the Wanzheng competition was still a competition. However, the two of them were completely toyed with by Yang Qin. Yang Qin noticed Ning Jiaojiao's gaze and looked up at her. The two of them looked at each other for a moment before turning their gazes away. Just then, another Tianlei came crashing down. Silver light flashed. Violent energy spread out in all directions. Ning Jiaojiao was the first to bear the brunt. Her mind turned and she immediately ran back. The bearded man who was standing behind her wanted to retreat as well, but he staggered and was one step too slow. It was this step that allowed Ning Jiaojiao to surpass him. He became the person closest to the sinkhole. In the next moment, his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. This meant that he had been eliminated. Yang Qin gave Ning Jiaojiao a warning glare. The corners of Ning Jiaojiao's lips curled into an arrogant arc, but it disappeared in an instant. What a pity! The bearded man was seriously injured and basically had no combat power left. A person who could no longer be of much help would be an eyesore if he stayed. Why not send him on his way? Ning Jiaojiao touched her face in satisfaction. Suddenly, she felt as if there was a cold gaze falling on her. She turned to look. A golden-haired young man was staring at her with a gaze as sharp as a knife. Under the gaze of that pair of eyes, everything she did just now seemed to have been seen through. Ning Jiaojiao instinctively looked away. However, that gaze still made her feel uneasy and uncomfortable. She asked seemingly unintentionally. "Who is that golden-haired young man? He looks familiar." Yang Qin sneered in her heart and didn't say anything. She still looked sad because her senior brother was eliminated. The lanky man patted her shoulder comfortingly. When he heard Ning Jiaojiao's words, he also took a look. "Isn't that the young man who bit someone the other day? I think his name is Chang Wanzhou?" Ning Jiaojiao finally had an impression. So it's him. She didn't know him, but why did he seem to have a grudge against her? Ning Jiaojiao was depressed, but she didn't intend to ask. She didn't want to miss out on the Long Yuan sword because of such a small matter. After a while, that gaze finally left and she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The waiting time was always especially unbearable. Especially when it was accompanied by great danger, it was even more unbearable. When the 36th Tianlei fell, no one was selected. Instead, another 2 people were chased out because they couldn't withstand the pressure. One of them was the lanky man from the Purple Shao Sword sect. Yang Qin finally couldn't help but lean in front of Ning Jiaojiao and ask in a low voice. "What are you trying to do?" Ning Jiaojiao chuckled. "I'm helping you. With those 2 people here, how can you use your fists and legs? Now that they've all been eliminated, you don't have to hide anymore." Yang Qin sneered. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ning Jiaojiao didn't care. She didn't believe that Yang Qiner could really pretend until the end. The others were getting more and more anxious. 4 rounds have already passed. Why hasn't the Long Yuan sword chosen a master? Let's wait a little longer. Once the divine weapon starts to awaken, it will definitely choose a new master. But what exactly is the golden flame below? The rumors about the Long Yuan sword didn't seem to mention this thing. How can such a mysterious and unfathomable place be guessed by us? Let's just wait patiently. Xuanji Square. A day and a night had passed. However, there were more people in the square than before. Jiang Yuqing was still in disguise. He stood in an inconspicuous corner and watched the situation on the square. Until now, most of the people had already been eliminated. However, the closer it was to the end, the more intense the competition was. He looked at the black jade board. There were only a few names on it. Suddenly, he fixed his gaze on one of the names on the list and asked, "Chu Liwei is still inside?" The man behind him immediately said, "Yes. Including her, there are 13 people." Jiang Yuqing put one hand behind his back and gradually clenched it into a fist. Chu Liwei was only a stage 3 warrior. Even if he had some ability, he should have already been eliminated. The lowest level of the remaining people should be at the peak of stage 5, right? Eldest young master is wise. And what? Jiang Yuqing asked impatiently. The man lowered his voice. And, among the remaining people, other than Chu Liwei, they are all at the upper level of the Daijing Yuan Meridian. Jiang Yuqing's pupils constricted. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 518. According to his original expectations at this time, the remaining people should all be geniuses with high-grade Daijing Yuan meridians. But Chu Liwei remained until now? Could it be that there was something strange about her? "Where is Mu Qinghe now?" he asked. "Eldest young master, didn't you ask Vice Admiral Mu to deal with that matter earlier? He shouldn't have come out at this time." He reminded him softly. Jiang Yuqing suddenly understood and rubbed his eyebrows. Perhaps he was really too tired these past few days. He even forgot about this matter. Ask him to go to Wanjin Garden. Wanjin Garden was a famous restaurant in Xiling City, known for its elegance and luxury. But only a few people knew that it was his territory. "You mean, now?" Jiang Yuqing glanced at the black jade board and nodded slightly. "Yes, I'll go now." With that, he turned and left. Guan Hao, continue to send people to keep an eye on the situation here. If there's anything unusual, inform me immediately. Guan Hao thought for a moment and roughly guessed what he meant by unusual. Yes. When Jiang Yuqing arrived at Wanjin Garden, Mu Qinghe was already waiting in the room. Seeing Jiang Yuqing come in, he immediately stood up. "Greetings, eldest young master." The deputy general of the Black Cavalry, who had always been cold and indifferent, was now very respectful to eldest young master Jiang. Jiang Yuqing sat down. "Sit down too." Mu Qinghe hesitated for a moment. Seeing that he had poured 2 cups of tea, she also sat down. Guan Hao walked out, gently closed the door and was responsible for guarding outside. Mu Qinghe lowered her eyes. "Eldest young master, why did you summon me here in such a hurry today?" Jiang Yuqing picked up the teacup and blew gently. The tea's fragrance assailed his nose. "It's nothing important. I just have something to ask you." "Please ask, eldest young master. I will tell you everything I know." Jiang Yuqing rubbed the teacup but didn't drink it. He just raised his eyes and glanced at Mu Qinghe. "Chu Liwei, did you bring him here?" Mu Qinghe's hands on her knees curled up slightly, but her expression did not change. "Yes. Everyone said that she came here with Jian Fengqi. What's going on?" Mu Qinghe paused for a moment before she briefly explained the situation. "Therefore I came back first and asked Jian Fengqi to bring Chu Liwei here. Jian Fengqi's name was left on the Wanzheng competition because there seemed to be a misunderstanding during the registration process." Jiang Yuqing curled his lips without a smile. "Lu Xing has always disliked Jian Fengqi. He probably did it on purpose. He's so brainless. He's indeed the same as his master Shangguan Wan. He didn't even think about it. Be it Shangguan Wan or Jiang Yuqing, neither of them would let Jian Fengqi do such a thing. He actually wanted to wait for an opportunity to take revenge. He didn't even know who could persuade Jian Fengqi to help." Mu Qinghe thought for a moment and said, "This rumor seems to have spread. This rumor seems to have spread far and wide in West Hill. Why don't I send someone to?" "No need. It doesn't matter what those people think. The key now is Chu Liwei." Mu Qinghe, when you came back, you didn't tell me that Chu Luiyue was hiding so many secrets. Jiang Yuqing put the teacup back on the table with a sound that was neither soft nor heavy. Mu Qinghe frowned slightly. I'm slow-witted. What does eldest young master mean? Jiang Yuqing smiled. Don't you know that she's still in the Tianling God realm? There were close to 200 people who entered. When I came there were only 13 left. She's one of them. She only has an intermediate Daijing Yuan meridian and is only a stage 3 warrior. Why do you think she's still here? Mu Qinghe's eyes narrowed. He knew that Chu Luiyue was capable, but he didn't expect her to last until now. You're indeed from country Yao Chen? Jiang Yuqing said meaningfully. Mu Qinghe immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. Eldest young master is wise. Chu Luiyue is indeed capable. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought her to the Wanzheng competition. But I didn't expect. There's no need to be nervous. Jiang Yuqing smiled and waved his hand, looking relaxed. The more you're like this, the happier the third princess will be when she finds out. Mu Qinghe lowered his eyes slightly and his voice was calm. Yes. There's another small matter that I'm a little curious about. Jiang Yuqing leaned forward and stared at Mu Qinghe. Don't you think that Chu Luiyue's appearance is a little similar to someone's? He still had a smile on his face, and his voice was calm and gentle as if he was talking about something unimportant. Mu Qinghe's clothes fluttered and she knelt on the ground. Eldest young master, I didn't mean it. It's just that country Yao Chen only has this young genius with the Daijing Yuan meridian, so I had no choice but to bring her back. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to continue staying in country Yao Chen. Jiang Yuqing stared at him with a gaze as sharp as a knife. The room fell into a long silence. After some time, Jiang Yuqing suddenly laughed. I'm just saying it casually. Why are you so nervous? In fact, it's only 30% similar. There are so many similar people in this world, so there's nothing to be surprised about. In fact, he had already sent people to secretly investigate Chu Luiyue. Based on the information he had received so far, there was no problem with Chu Luiyue's identity. Most importantly, she was indeed only 14 years old. Mu Qinghe heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Thank you, eldest young master. Jiang Yuqing smiled and leaned back in his chair. This is just a coincidence. If there were other candidates, why would you choose Chu Luiyue? After all, your old master was really devoted to you. Mu Qinghe's head suddenly hit the ground. From the beginning to the end, I only have one master, eldest young master. His head was on the cold floor and it seemed to have chilled his heart. After a short and suffocating silence, Jiang Yuqing finally stood up, personally helped him up and warmly said, You're too young. What are you doing? I've always trusted you the most. Mu Qinghe stood up. Thank you, eldest young master. There was a clear bruise on his forehead, which showed how hard he had knocked just now. You can go back first. Just continue to do what I told you before. Don't worry about anything else. This was a warning to him that he was not allowed to interfere in the Wanzheng conference. Yes. After Jiang Yuqing finished speaking, he left. After a long time, Mu Qinghe slowly exhaled. He looked at the 2 cups of tea on the table. Jiang Yuqing's cup had not been touched from beginning to end. He stood there for a long time. Hong Yao had appeared on his shoulder at some point. It had always been lively, but at this moment, it was much more listless and silent. Mu Qinghe closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes had returned to calmness. Then he left. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 519. Time passed slowly. There was dead silence in the main hall. Chu Luiyue was highly focused as she stared at the huge Xian formation. When the 2 forces were confronting each other, she had already started to silently memorize the path of the Heaven Path's aura on the Xian formation. However, the pressure of a level 9 Xian formation was too strong for her now, so this process was very taxing on her. Not only was her mind exhausted, but her force was also depleting quickly. Hence, Chu Luiyue could only watch as she replenished her force. Fortunately, the water droplet had already stored countless force, so it could continuously flow out and spread to her limbs and bones. At first, this process was more painful, but after a few times, Chu Luiyue gradually got used to it. Her flesh, blood, and bones were rapidly becoming stronger as the origin power washed through her body. Even she did not realize that the aura around her was constantly strengthening. The legendary 3-eyed eagle looked at Chu Luiyue, and an obscure light flashed across its eyes. This kind of cultivation method had very high requirements for the cultivator, and ordinary people could not tolerate it. However, not only did Chu Luiyue tolerate it, but she also seemed to be getting more relaxed. Her potential was even stronger than what she had shown before. It turned its gaze and looked at the heavenly square cauldron that was quietly floating in midair. Now it finally understood why the heavenly square cauldron chose her. Chu Liyue focused all her attention on the Shen formation and completely forgot about the time. In her mind, a rough outline of the Shen formation was gradually sketched out. On the other side, Chu Liyue had already forgotten herself, but the people waiting outside the crater were still enduring with difficulty. As time passed, the Long Yuan sword summoned more and more heaven paths, and its aura and pressure became stronger. They had already retreated dozens of miles from their initial position. Furthermore, 2 more people were eliminated one after another. Only half of the original 10 people were left. However, the Long Yuan sword had no intention of choosing a new master. No one was chosen in the 5th and 6th rounds, and now there were only 2 chances left. They did not show it on their faces, but they were all secretly anxious. "There is no day or night here, and I wonder how much time has passed," Yang Qina muttered. The others didn't say anything. When Chang Wanzhou heard this, he suddenly thought of something and his expression changed slightly. He closed his eyes and examined the situation in his body. A moment later he opened his eyes. His beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. The medicinal effect of the pill he had eaten earlier seemed to have completely taken effect. He didn't know if it was because the environment here was different from the outside world or because it was already time. He glanced at the sinkhole. From here, one could only see the gigantic dragon abyss sword and the crazily burning golden flames. Chu Liyue still did not appear. After thinking for a while, he took out a jade bottle and swallowed the second pill. Xuanji Square. After 2 days there were only 9 names left on the black jade board. Everyone guessed that at this rate the competition would be over in a few days. Surprisingly, no one was eliminated on the 3rd day. The waiting crowd gradually became impatient. All kinds of rumors were spreading like wildfire. It's already been 3 days. Why haven't the remaining 9 people come out? Could something have happened to them? That's the Tianling God Realm. What kind of accident could happen? Didn't you see that those who were eliminated were all sent out alive? Let's not worry about it. Can't we just treat it as a show? That's true. At the end of the day, the sects in Xiling City care about who wins and who loses the most, right? It has nothing to do with us. But then again, it was said that there might be many rare treasures hidden in the Tianling God Realm, but those who were chased out before, they were all half dead. There's an 80% chance that they have nothing to do with the treasures. Do you guys think that the Tianling God Realm is just a dangerous place without any treasures? That's the place where Taizu passed away. Rumor has it that he once left a heavenly Dao behind. How can there be nothing? Besides, how can opportunities be obtained so easily? Who knows, it might all be given to one person in the end. There are still 9 people left. I wonder who will be so lucky. But that Chu Liyue is actually still here. This is really unexpected. In a private room on the 2nd floor of Spring Breeze Restaurant, a woman in white was holding a pipa and playing it. She had a slim figure like a willow branch swaying in the wind. Her face was covered by a veil, revealing only a pair of gentle eyes. But one could still tell that she was a rare beauty. She played the pipa with a noisy mix of notes. Pearls big and small fell on a jade plate. Behind the screen was a tall figure lying diagonally. Suddenly the woman in white stopped playing. The room instantly quieted down. After a while, the man behind the screen spoke lazily. "Little Lu, why did you suddenly stop playing?" The woman in white stood up and curtsied. "Young Master Jian's heart isn't here today. No matter how much I play, it won't enter your ears. Let's just leave it at that." Her voice was very gentle and pleasant, but in Jian Fengqi's ears, it seemed to contain killing intent. He coughed. "Little Lu, you've misunderstood. How could I, Jian Fengqi? I won't play the lute to a cow." The woman in white suddenly interrupted Jian Fengqi rudely. "This is really asking for my life." Jian Fengqi immediately understood the situation and said, "Little Lu, go and rest first. Don't tire yourself out." The woman in white walked around the screen with the pipa in her arms and walked over. She sneered. "Jian Fengqi, I've played for you for so long. Is there any progress on the matter I asked you to do?" Jian Fengqi, the famous little tyrant of Xiling City, had always been arrogant and unbridled. But in front of this woman in white, he seemed to be subconsciously inferior. His handsome face was scrunched up. Yes. If I didn't find anything, I wouldn't have dared to step into Chunfeng restaurant." The woman in white's eyes lit up. "That's more like it. Then tell me." Before she finished speaking, a series of footsteps suddenly came from outside. Fengqi. Fengqi. A familiar young man's voice sounded. The two people in the room were stunned. Jian Fengqi said, "It's Yuan Jinghong." The woman in white gritted her teeth. "I know. He came at the right time." With that, she quickly retreated behind the screen. The door was immediately opened. Yuan Jinghong rushed in hurriedly. "Fengqi. Do you know?" Seeing the woman in white in the room, he suddenly stuttered. "Miss Lu, I didn't expect you to be here too." Shui Luer bowed to the screen. "Then I'll take my leave first." She took a few steps back and walked to Yuan Jinghong's side and bowed. Yuan Jinghong's ears were red as he said, "Take care, Miss Lu, what are you doing here?" Jian Fengqi walked out from behind the screen. He crossed his arms and looked at him impatiently. Yuan Jinghong then remembered his purpose of coming and looked excited. "You still don't know? Chu Luiyue, who you brought, is now in the top 8 of the Wanzheng competition. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 520. Jian Fengqi was stunned for a moment before he realized what he was talking about. Wanzheng competition? Top 8? Looking at Jian Fengqi's expression, Yuan Jinghong's smile gradually froze. "Don't tell me you don't care about this at all?" Jian Fengqi shrugged lazily. "Isn't it just a competition? Do you have to care so much? Especially since this was a competition requested by Shangguan Wan and Jiang Yuqing." Not only did he not care, but he also looked down on it. If not for the sake of helping Mu Qinghe, he would not have gotten involved in this matter at all. In the past few days he had been eating, drinking, and having fun in Xiling City. How could he have the leisure to think about anything else? Yuan Jinghong clicked his tongue. "To think that you were the one who brought her here." Jian Fengqi thought that this person was brought here by Mu Qinghe. It really had nothing to do with him. "Why isn't the competition over yet?" Yuan Jinghong looked at him disdainfully. "Looks like you really don't care about this at all. I really don't know why you brought this girl here. This competition has already been going on for 4 days. Today is the 5th day. There were nearly 200 people participating in the official competition, and now there are only 8 left." Without waiting for Jian Fengqi to explain, he continued. "Now, all the major casinos in Xiling City have started to place bets on who will come in first." Hearing this, Jian Fengqi immediately perked up. "Really?" Meeting Yuan Jinghong's disdainful gaze, Jian Fengqi coughed. "Then, what's the odds for that girl?" "Of course it's the highest. She's the lowest level among the 8. "No, she's the lowest level among the contestants." As Yuan Jinghong spoke, he couldn't help but rub his chin. "Sigh, speaking of which, this girl is really quite impressive. I don't think she's relying on luck to last until now. Let's not talk about other things, but your eye for choosing people is pretty good." Jian Fengqi's lips curled into a sinister smile, with a hint of complacency. Of course. Since he was in a rush, he did not explain further. "You called me here today just to say this?" Jian Fengqi changed the topic and asked. "Achoo." Yuan Jinghong suddenly sneezed loudly. He rubbed his nose. "Hey, who's thinking of this young master?" Jian Fengqi looked at him sympathetically. Little Lu was suddenly interrupted. By now, she had probably cursed all 8 generations of Yuan Jinghong's ancestors. "Hee, I'm here to ask you about the girl you brought with you. How far do you think she can go?" Yuan Jinghong rubbed his hands. "I've been tight on cash recently, so I wanted to see if I could take advantage of this opportunity to win. If you say she can make it to 8th place, then I'll bet on 8th place. If you say 7th, then I'll bet on 7th. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. "The higher the ranking, the higher the payout." Yuan Jinghong nodded. "What's the payout for her getting 1st place?" Yuan Jinghong said a number. Jian Fengqi turned around and walked outside. Fengqi, where are you going?" Yuan Jinghong hurriedly got up and followed him. Jian Fengqi didn't even turn back. "To make a fortune." The Wanzheng competition was still ongoing, and everyone in Xiling City seemed to be focused on this competition. A piece of gossip spread throughout the entire Xiling overnight. It was said that Dragon Teeth Mountain's young master, Jian Fengqi, went to all the casinos in Xiling City and bet tens of thousands of gold coins on Chu Luiyue winning 1st place in the Wanzheng competition. This was like pouring another pot of oil on the fire. Everyone was originally filled with curiosity and anticipation for the Wanzheng competition because it involved the Tianling God realm. Jian Fengqi's actions caused even more commotion. Jian Fengqi's style of doing things was well known in Xiling City for not following the rules and being carefree and unrestrained. But this action still made countless people's jaws drop. Because in everyone's opinion, it was impossible for Chu Luiyue to get first place. Jian Fengqi's actions were almost the same as burning money. Even if he was rich, he couldn't afford to spend like this. If it weren't for some special reason, would he do this? Hence, everyone in Xiling knew that Jian Fengqi had taken a liking to Chu Luiyue, whom he brought back. Jian Fengqi was known for being a playboy, but this was the first time he had done such a big thing. It instantly attracted countless guesses. Could it be that the usually playboy young Master Jian is finally going to stop this time? Countless women felt sad because of this. 100 Herbs Building. A few women were strolling around the exhibition hall on the first floor, whispering to each other. I heard that Chu Luiyue was brought back by Jian Fengqi from outside Heaven's Canopy. She doesn't seem to have a good background. I really don't know what he sees in her. Her background is indeed not good, but you haven't seen her in person, right? I saw her from afar that day and she is indeed a rare beauty. No wonder Jian Fengqi is so infatuated with her. So what if she's beautiful? There are so many beautiful women in this world. I think Jian Fengqi is just temporarily infatuated. He will wake up after some time. Could it be that she can really enter Dragon Teeth Mountain and become the young mistress? The page boy standing behind the crystal cabinet finally couldn't help but ask, May I ask if the Chu Luiyue you mentioned just now is the one who just came to Xiling recently? The women looked at each other and nodded in confusion. Yes, what's wrong? The page boy smiled courteously. I don't know where you heard these rumors from, but they are indeed outrageous. Miss Chu is an honored guest of the Mu clan. How could she be related to young Master Jian? One of the women asked. Which Mu clan? There is only one Mu clan in Xiling City. The page boy reminded. A few days ago when Miss Chu came here, she was accompanied by Vice Admiral Mu's trusted aide, Lieutenant Duan. Everyone in our 100 Herbs building can see it clearly. This time the women's expressions changed. Chu Luiyue was actually related to that killing god? Honored guest. What kind of honored guest could she be to make Mu Qinghe value her so much? After all, he didn't even have half a woman in his residence. Is what you said true? Another woman stepped forward and asked anxiously. The page boy pointed upstairs. Of course. That day Miss Chu bought a lot of things back, and the servants who accompanied her were directly promoted to the second floor. Who in 100 Herbs building wasn't envious? Now, everyone was waiting for Chu Luiyue to come to their door again. The women looked at each other and one of them covered her mouth and smiled. This Chu Luiyue is really amazing. Not only can she make young Master Jian spend a lot of money for her, she can also make Vice Admiral Mu make an exception for her. She is really amazing. The page boy's expression changed slightly. Miss, please be careful with your words. The woman's smile became even more cheerful. What? Even the 100 Herbs building has become her territory? Can't I even say a word? Miss Chu is an honored guest of our 100 Herbs building with a black gold card. Naturally we have to prioritize Miss Chu. A clear man's voice suddenly sounded. Everyone turned around. All the page boys on the first floor saluted in unison. Greetings, Manager Yu. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 521. It turned out that this person was the manager of 100 Herbs building. Yuling, wasn't he always elusive and elusive? It was said that even some of the bigwigs in Xiling City had to send an invitation a month in advance if they wanted to visit him. They might not even be able to meet him. Logically speaking, a mere manager of a medicinal herb store shouldn't have a status as high as these people, let alone be arrogant in front of them. However, Yuling was different. Because he was in charge of 100 Herbs building. Things were precious when they were rare. He had things that others didn't have, so he naturally had an advantage over others. In Xiling City, no one wanted to offend 100 Herbs building. Because no one could guarantee that they wouldn't need to buy medicinal herbs from 100 Herbs building for the rest of their lives. Anyone who knew what was good for them wouldn't ask for a rebuff here. Of course, these women couldn't afford to offend Yuling, so they immediately hesitated and apologized sincerely. So sorry. Yuling nodded and smiled slightly. I believe you won't make such a mistake again in the future. The women breathed a sigh of relief together. However, before they could speak, they saw Yuling speak to the servant beside them. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and ask these ladies to leave. The servant shuddered and hurriedly said, Yes, yes. As he spoke, he had already quickly bypassed the crystal cabinet and walked to the front of the women. He raised his hand and pointed to the door. Ladies, please. This. Manager Yu, what do you mean? One of the women asked with a blank face. We haven't bought our things yet. Yuling's smile didn't change. I know. It was obvious that he wanted to drive them out. The servant immediately urged, "Ladies, please." Although the women were full of anger, they didn't dare to really cause trouble in 100 Herbs building, so they could only leave angrily. "Let's go." At the door, one of the women finally couldn't hold back and looked back. Suppressing her anger, she said, "I didn't expect 100 Herbs building to treat customers like this. Next time, even if you invite us, we won't come." Yuling smiled and said, "Ladies, don't worry about this problem. From today onwards, 100 Herbs building won't do business with you." As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. The few women who were about to step out of the store all stopped and looked at Yuling in shock. The woman who spoke was also frightened. "General Manager Yu, what do you mean by this?" "It's the literal meaning. You have openly criticized and humiliated our black gold card VIPs in the 100 Herbs building. Naturally, we have to show our attitude. Please take a detour when you come here in the future." Yuling's tone was very gentle, but the words he said were very cold and ruthless. "All right. It's the same for the families of the ladies." The exhibition hall on the first floor was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Yuling was really ruthless. He actually cut off the entire family's business. Who knew what kind of punishment these women would have to endure when they returned? Even if they said bad things about Chu Luiyue, this was too much. Although some people thought so, no one was stupid enough to speak up for these people. What a joke. Who would be so brainless as to offend Yuling for an unrelated person? The few women obviously realized that something was wrong. They anxiously begged and two of them even cried. But Yuling was too lazy to pay attention to them and turned around. A few manservants stepped forward and chased the women out of the room. They lingered outside the door for a long time, attracting a lot of attention. But they couldn't say the reason, so they could only leave in embarrassment. Yuling's gaze swept across the people standing in the exhibition hall on the first floor and smiled. "Sorry to disturb you. I'll prepare a small gift for you later. Please forgive me." Everyone hurriedly responded happily. Since Yuling had done so, they definitely had to give face. After comforting everyone, Yuling walked upstairs. He walked to the third floor alone. A middle-aged man greeted him. "General Manager, why did you suddenly come today?" This person was Cui Fangyi, the Deputy General Manager of the 100 Herbs building. Yuling walked into his room on the third floor, and the middle-aged man followed him in. After closing the door, Yuling suddenly exhaled, and his face was full of lingering fear. "Fortunately, I didn't come too late." Cui Fangyi was confused. "What did you say?" Yuling shook his head, walked over and sat down before saying, "You should know what happened downstairs. If there are similar things in the future, deal with it like this." Cui Fangyi frowned. "You mean, if there are any people who humiliate the black gold card in the future, we won't do business with them? You haven't set such a rule before. Are you really going to do this? Those people were a little too much, but they didn't know their crime." Yuling raised his eyes and glanced at him. "Why do you think I came here in a hurry today?" Cui Fangyi was stunned for a moment and suddenly opened his eyes in shock. "Don't tell me you came here specifically for Chu." Yuling nodded. "I just received the news today." He pointed upwards. "From now on, this Miss Chu will be an esteemed guest of our 100 Herbs building." Cui Fangyi took a breath of cold air. "Who is Chu Luiyue?" "I should have received the news a few days ago, but I was delayed by something on the way, so I received it." Yuling shook his head with a wry smile. "I didn't expect that Miss Chu had already come to the 100 Herbs building a few days later. However, this is good. Now that she is a VIP of the Black Gold card, she can be a good excuse." Although Cui Fangyi was still shocked, he immediately responded. "Yes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 522. Tunling God Realm. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged in the magnificent hall, still staring at the huge Xian formation not far away. She had completely ignored everything around her. There was only one thought in her mind, to decipher this Xian formation. She already had a rough outline in her mind. As time passed, the outline gradually became clearer. This was the Xian formation that Chu Luiyue imitated in her mind. Of course, compared to the real Xian formation, this small ball was nothing. But Chu Luiyue didn't really want to completely copy it. For the current her, it was simply impossible for her to do so. So, she was actually trying her best to depict the trajectory of the previous heavenly Tao and try to find a pattern from it. At a certain moment, she finally made up her mind. Brilliant starlight burst out from her eyes. "That's it. Go." That water droplet that contained the aura of the heavenly Tao rushed toward a certain point on the Xian formation. Boom. Two incomparably powerful forces collided with each other. A loud sound was heard. It hit the target. Chu Luiyue was elated. The next moment, with the point of impact as the center, a visible energy wave started to spread in all directions. The streams of light that were close to it were instantly crushed. It destroyed everything in its path. The huge Shin formation had officially collapsed. At the same time, the few people outside the crater continued to wait. There were only 4 people left: Chang Wanzhou, Ning Jiaojiao, Yang Qiner, and the burly man named Chou Ding. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. The few of them stared at the long yuan sword with visible nervousness on their faces. Because this was already the 80th Tianlei. The long yuan sword still hadn't chosen a master. So there was only one last chance left. Ning Jiaojiao couldn't help but look at Chang Wanzhou in the distance. Not long ago, this blonde young man actually broke through to become a stage 6 warrior here. She was jealous and resentful. She couldn't understand how Chang Wanzhou could break through so smoothly at such a tense time. What she did not know was that Chang Wanzhou's attention was not on the long yuan sword. From beginning to end, there was only one thing on his mind: to find Chu Luiyue. He could sense that she was under the golden flames, so he waited patiently. While he was waiting, he reckoned that he had already used the 3rd pill. It was also because of the effects of these 3 pills that the evil frost chi in his body was dispelled, giving him the opportunity to break through. Wah! Suddenly, a turbulent fluctuation came from the sinkhole. This movement immediately attracted the attention of several people. Chou Ding rose into the air without hesitation. Look at the sinkhole. However, what he saw shocked him to the core. How could this be? The golden flames that originally filled the sinkhole actually began to surge back crazily. It was as if something was crazily devouring it from below. However, the last Tianlei on the long yuan sword did not descend. The entire hall began to shake. The dust on countless treasures fell, the beads began to roll around, and the jade stones that were piled up into a mountain shook. The water beads shattered silently, and tens of thousands of streams of light disintegrated at the same time. The dazzling light almost blinded Chu Luiyue. It was almost a crushing advantage. A look of shock flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. The power of the heavenly Tao in Chu Luiyue's body was already so strong? Although it was the one who suggested to let Chu Luiyue try to use the heavenly Tao to deal with the heavenly Tao, it did not have much hope. After all, Chu Luiyue's current realm had not broken through to become a stage 4 warrior. Even if her true strength was comparable to a stage 5 warrior, it was almost impossible for her to break through a level 9 Shen formation. However, the power of the heavenly Tao that she displayed now far exceeded that of the Shen formation. Just the heavenly Tao in her body should not be able to achieve such power. It was that water bead. That water bead seemed to contain a power that could go against the heavenly Tao. The legendary three-eyed eagle was shocked by this sudden thought. It looked up again and saw that the water bead had scattered into countless tiny water droplets and scattered in various parts of the Shen formation. The entire Shen formation collapsed irreversibly. It turned into countless stars and scattered in all directions. When the last stream of light was destroyed, Chu Luiyue immediately had a thought. A transparent karmic fire flew out from the heavenly square cauldron and covered the sky as it flew toward the half of the corpse. The huge corpse was immediately enveloped. In the next moment, the corpse was slowly lifted up by the transparent karmic fire. At this moment, golden flames suddenly surged from the surroundings and poured into the corpse crazily. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. The legendary three-eyed eagle immediately said in a low voice, "That's the power of the great phoenix dragon." Previously, it must have sensed that the long yuan sword was about to awaken, so this power spread out in all directions, trying to break free from this suppression. Now that you want to take the corpse away, this power naturally surged back. Does this great phoenix dragon's corpse still have a soul? Chu Luiyue asked doubtfully. That's not it. This is just the last remnant of the great phoenix dragon's consciousness. If this great phoenix dragon still had half of its soul, it would not be in this situation. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt a little emotional. The ancient divine beast was indeed extraordinary. It had been dead for so long, but in this corpse, there was still such a powerful consciousness. I wonder how strong the great phoenix dragon is when it's alive. As the golden flames surged back, the corpse became even more lustrous and translucent. When the last cluster of golden flames disappeared into the corpse, the heavenly square cauldron finally swallowed it forcefully. Through the transparent heavenly square cauldron, one could still clearly see the corpse falling into it. At the same time, the Shen formation had completely dissipated. Countless tiny water droplets gathered back into a water bead, containing the starlight, and returned to Chu Liyue's body. Chu Liyue stood up and waved his hand lightly, wanting to recall the heavenly square cauldron. However, the heavenly square cauldron stopped in midair and did not move at all. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment and tried again. The heavenly square cauldron still did not move at all. A sense of uneasiness suddenly surged from the bottom of her heart. At this moment, an illusory figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the hall. "Are you leaving after taking my things?" A deep man's voice sounded. Every word was like a clap of thunder in her ears. It made one's heart tremble. Chu Liyue's internal organs seemed to have been crushed by this invisible pressure. It was extremely painful. A strong smell of blood suddenly surged up her throat. She did not doubt that if the other party wanted to, he could take her life now. This person was the strongest person she had ever met in her 2 lives. The man waved his hand, and the heavenly square cauldron quickly shrank and landed in his palm. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.